Emptiness, that was all he could perceive. It was all he could hear, all he could taste, all he could smell, all he could feel. But that wasn't everything he understood. As he started to recognize his hollow state, he also began to sense that he wasn't truly void. Bit by bit, clarity returned. Names, images, voices, each memory surfaced again, one after another. It wasn't easy, some might say it couldn't be done. He wasn't simply recalling. He was summoning them back by sheer will, driven by one deep-rooted truth. These memories had to exist. Every instinct inside him demanded their existence. So he forced them into being. Whoever or whatever disagreed was irrelevant. His resolve would not and could not be broken. Emotions surged, power ignited. And then that final fragment, perhaps the most essential, clicked into place. Naruto Fuhin arose. Unbelievable, someone screamed in disbelief. He should have been gone. How is this possible? Even if he lived, how can he be here? This breaks every law. He isn't supposed to exist. Voices rose in outrage and confusion, arguing over his presence, or so he gathered. He neither spoke nor opened his eyes. His training as a shinobi told him to first assess the surroundings before things escalated, which was already likely. Silently, he reached inward and activated a scanning technique he had once learned from the Kyuubi, a mental mapping skill he frequently used to mirror physical objects in his mindscape. The first sensation he detected was overwhelming power, greater than anything he'd known. These entities, no way they were human, held vast energy, practically boundless, yet constrained by their shapes. Upon deeper inspection, he realized none of them could harness even a fraction of that strength, not even a millionth of a percent. Turning his awareness on himself, he was both startled and strangely unsurprised to feel a similar infinite energy source. But unlike the others, he could draw upon it freely, far more than those bickering nearby. With renewed confidence and slight satisfaction, he pushed his awareness out further. More figures appeared. All radiated that boundless strength, though none matched his. And then he felt her. The energy radiating from her was massive, even slightly surpassing his own. Intrigued, he focused more of his senses, just enough not to be noticed, and began piecing together her form. Violet skin, black talons and fangs, a pair of black horns emerging from her temples, a flowing white mane that reached her lower back, so bright it dulled the color of the robe she wore. Black sclera with shimmering gold irises. She resembled a demon goddess more than anything. Yes, he recognized her. The missing left hand was another giveaway, but as he watched the deity known as the Shinigami, he could feel amusement radiating from her. Curious, he probed deeper, focusing solely on her, and what he found left him stunned. Beneath that fearsome exterior was a different form, one that resonated more honestly with her emotions. A young woman, barely into adulthood, with silver blonde hair tied into two ponytails reaching down to her ankles. Her black hooded cloak, decorated in white, did little to hide her generous figure, and then there were her eyes, striking blue and impossible to look away from. Heth, Naruto chuckled softly, instantly quieting the crowd. Every eye turned to him, some shocked, others tense, a few furious. I should have guessed you were the Shinigami, he murmured, turning his gaze toward the death goddess and opening his own eyes, blue and green meeting hers. Amiduru. In the silence that followed, her reaction rang like a bell. And somehow, it was a giggle, a soft, amused giggle, something no one would have expected from the Shinigami. Moments later, she radiated a luminous glow of blue-white, and the spectral form around her dissolved into shimmering fragments. Her true self, as Naruto had perceived, stood revealed. She lowered her hood as she walked gracefully to where he rested. I'm impressed, she said, her voice clear and commanding. I hoped someone might see past my illusion unlike them. She waved dismissively at the surrounding figures. But I never imagined you'd know my real name. It made sense, the Shinigami being the Gravekeeper's ruler, Naruto shrugged. But that doesn't explain how you knew my name, Amiduru replied. There was only one daughter of the Life-Maker, Naruto responded simply. And how'd you know that was me? She pressed. I just guessed, it felt right. He shrugged again. You guessed, Amiduru blinked. For ages, her name had been locked away, long before she became the Reaper herself, and this man just guessed it out of instinct. Flustered, she shook her head and quickly changed the topic. Anyway, you're naked. Apparently so, Naruto acknowledged, standing up from the marble dais and glancing at himself. Physically, nothing seems changed, he mused aloud. You don't even feel embarrassed, Amiduru asked, flustered. Not at all, he said with a grin. Judging by how you're eyeing my backside, I think I have nothing to be shy about. The goddess of death flushed and turned away, glaring. Put something on already, she huffed. Fine, fine, Naruto murmured, and in a flash of light he was dressed. This time, his cloak was deep black, with a radiant golden seven-pointed star surrounding an eye emblazoned across the back. You could have picked something flashier, Amiduru noted. I expected more flair from you. Maybe later, not in the mood now, Naruto replied, glancing around. So who are they? Thoth, Maat, Amun, and Anubis, she pointed first. Susanoo, Izanagi, Hachiman, and Amakane, she gestured again. Ares, Zeus, Kronos, Erebus, and Uranus, she said, motioning to a particularly tense group. And finally Odin, Thor, Tyr, and Mimir. Huh, right, Naruto said, sounding only mildly interested. He then looked at her again. Also, sorry about the left hand. If I could have removed it safely from the seal, I would have. Oh, don't worry. I only left my spirit form like that to skip a few duties and let Hel, Osiris, and the others handle things for a while. Grew it back in a couple human days. Amiduru waved it off to the visible shock of the other gods. So, if I had died, would you have consumed my soul and the rest? Oh, totally, Amiduru admitted without hesitation. Well, good thing I didn't, Naruto muttered. So where am I exactly? Nowhere, Amiduru smiled. Care to elaborate? Naruto sighed. This is the boundless space between all realities. See those glimmers? She pointed into the infinite darkness, dotted with lights. Those are separate universes, and some are linked because they're variants, Naruto recalled from Kaio's teachings. Exactly. They form large networks, reality clusters, that evolve similarly. The threads you see connecting them, either links to other universes or ties to their source, she explained. Source? Naruto asked. Every world begins with an idea. A person somewhere imagines it into being. Most come from creators, writers, inventors who dream them up. After that, they grow and change, Amiduru said. And here we are, Naruto muttered, scanning the endless void. To think we can actually exist in the nothing. Yes, even for us gods, that part remains a mystery, Amiduru admitted. We don't know how we exist here, we just do. Do not call him a god, girl. He has no right to exist, I never permitted it. And I never will, a hoarse voice snarled. Naruto turned, noticing how Amiduru had tensed, her eyes now cold and sharp as they locked onto the newcomer. It was an elderly woman. Or perhaps ancient was more accurate. Her scalp had only random tufts of thin hair. Her sockets were sunken, her eyes seemingly plucked out. Her few teeth were brown and decaying. She was without question the most hideous person Naruto had ever encountered. Well, let's take a guess, Naruto said loudly. You're here so you're divine. Also, you're a hideous hag. Amiduru bit her lip to hold back laughter while the others stood frozen, stunned that anyone would insult her. So your fate, Naruto nodded, eyes narrowing. That's her, Amiduru said through stifled chuckles. You will return, Fate growled. Your loved ones will perish at the hands of your foes. After a century of sacrifice to bring peace, you too will die. That is the fate I have decreed. It shall be. Before she could take a single step, her heart was already in Naruto's grasp, his arm piercing her back and crushing through bone to retrieve it. Why you idiot, Fate gasped, somehow clinging to life. D-deities see can't perish, I'm a PR prime D-deity, why you'll suffer for this in insolence. I couldn't care less about your threats. Naruto replied, his voice frigid and seething with fury, halting even Fate in her tracks. The second you endangered those I care for. A dark storm of energy burst from Naruto's body, engulfing him. It reformed into the Life Maker's regal cloak, his side glowing with a levitating key of the Grand Master, now gold, cloaked in spiraling black and gold lightning. The globe that once displayed Mundus Magicus was now a flawless golden sphere. You signed your end, he finished, his voice distorted and demonic. His sclera turned pitch black, while swirling irises flashed with chaotic hues, housing 3 black rings with 3 tamo each in a ripple-like pattern, a golden 7-pointed star below, and a third identical eye opening on his forehead. A jet-black feathered wing and a radiant white draconic wing erupted from his back, tinged with gold. Code of Chaos, Annihilation, he bellowed, surging chaotic force into Fate, who shrieked in pure torment. It began as golden black lightning spearing her chest, veins of dark energy spreading rapidly from her heart across her body. Then with one final, horrified scream, she burst into dark golden particles which spiraled into Naruto's body and vanished. Unbelievable, A god can't be slain, cried a voice in panic. Naive creature, Naruto began. Odin, corrected the trembling Norse god. Doesn't matter, Naruto scoffed. You really thought I'd bow to any rules? I'm Naruto C. Fuhin, newest chaos god of the void. I serve no one. I go where I want, do as I please, and if that bothers you, he paused to crack his bloodied knuckles, get in line. Only Amiduru approached him, wrapping an arm around his shoulders. After a quiet exchange, Izanagi stepped forward. We've reached a decision and offer a resolution to your dilemma, he declared. What exactly is my dilemma? Naruto asked flatly. In essence, only one deity may arise from each world. You and Amiduru share an origin point. Izanagi began. Technically, she came from the original version, and I from the reality it shifted into after Dynamis botched everything, Naruto clarified. It's still fundamentally the same world, Amiduru said thoughtfully. The issue is, normally, a reality must be sacrificed to create a god like us. Yours, however, remains intact, thus the anomaly. So, what's the deal? Naruto turned to Izanagi. Ordinarily, fledgling gods are reborn in parallel versions of their old world to mature and master their abilities. We won't interfere with your godhood, Izanagi said. Not that you could, Amiduru sang. And won't penalize you for destroying fate if you agree to reincarnate 3 times, complete several tasks for the Shinigami, and take occasional requests from other gods. Izanagi finished. Do they have to be back-to-back? Naruto asked. No, but you must spend time in alternate versions of your world before returning. Izanagi replied. Do I seriously have to start as a baby? Naruto groaned. The first time, yes, Amiduru confirmed. But you'll likely merge with alternate versions of yourself later. They're fragments of your soul anyway. And how long must I stay in these incarnations? Naruto asked. Until the Akatsuki are entirely dismantled, Amiduru replied. And not before your first Chunin exams at age 12. This is going to suck, Naruto muttered. Also, Izanagi grinned wickedly. You won't have any god-level powers during your first cycle. No divine powers, Naruto blinked. Correct, Izanagi smirked. Give us a second. Naruto pulled Amiduru aside, raising a sound barrier. When he says no god powers, that doesn't include the abilities I had before ascending, right? Nope. You keep all your original energy types and bloodlines, Amiduru smiled. Most gods here were powerless mortals before Ascension. Izanagi forgets there's power outside of godhood. He expects me to struggle without divine energy, Naruto chuckled. He doesn't get it, chaos can't be mastered anyway. Take your time. From the void you can access any place, any era, Amiduru assured him. Can we stay in touch while I'm away? Naruto asked. Technically yes, but no other gods can enter your host realm. What about a pactio? Naruto offered. That could work, Amiduru agreed. Before she could finish, a magic circle lit up beneath them and Naruto kissed her, catching her off guard. She quickly melted into it, wrapping her arms around him. A golden flash produced a pactio card, which Amiduru caught as they separated. De Mortis, she read aloud. Stylish, she remarked, examining the black background and gold border. Nice chain whip, Naruto noted, eyeing the twisting silver weapon encircling her protectively. Izanaga's calling. Let's go, Amiduru said, pocketing the card. What did you do? Izanagi snapped. Gave her my number, Naruto said casually. I accept. Then take this. Izanagi handed him a large crimson gem. It'll explain this version of your world, what's changed and what lies ahead. As Naruto touched it, his head throbbed, and then he vanished, the red gem flying into the multiversal web. That was mean. First time's always a shock, Amiduru commented. I know, Izanagi replied smugly, walking off. Fool, Amiduru thought. If there's one universal truth, it's to never underestimate Naruto. Somewhere else, Naruto awoke to piercing cries. Recognizing 2 voices, he hushed his breathing and tried to see. It hurt, but he managed only to be horrified. Izanagi, you scumbag, Kaguya Uchiha. Void-damned hell, why this form, Amiduru? Naruto mentally screamed. That would be Izanaga's doing, Amiduru replied. We're often reborn differently to see things from new angles. Usually we choose, but he cheated. Tell him he's the worst, Naruto grumbled. All right, time to adapt. Ending the link, Naruto sighed internally and looked up at his new mother, Mikoto Uchiha. Worse, to the side, sat his older twin, Sasuke Uchiha. And perhaps most shocking, he was no longer a he. So, I'm Sasuke's younger twin sister now. Just perfect, she mentally groaned. But hey, I'll get the Sharingan and I've got a donor close by. Heh, maybe this isn't so bad. She gave a low, wicked chuckle then sighed. Okay, mission comes first. Stop the Mugen Tsukuyomi. No deep bonds. Eventually, I'll absorb this world into my chaos as a stabilizer. I might save a few people, but not now. So no marriage, no love affairs, especially since same-sex unions aren't accepted here anyway. Not like I'd marry a guy. She paused, frowning. I should probably sterilize myself. Wouldn't put it past Danzo to steal genetic material during a checkup. So much to deal with. Then, reinforcing her mouth with chakra, she bit gently on Mikoto's offered breast, causing a pleased moan from the woman. Yeah, I can deal with 7 years of this, she smirked. Time skip October 10th. Yup, that thing's not acting on its own, thought Naruto, now Kaguya Uchiha, as she observed the frenzied Ninetales from the safety of Itachi's arms, her twin sibling asleep beside her. Those eyes are clearly off. The Uchiha clan's going to be blamed for this, and that'll be the end of them in a few years, whatever. Her thoughts stayed detached. This Ninetales is nothing like my Q-chan. Enough lounging around, I've got work to do, and I know exactly where to begin. Her jet-black eyes momentarily gleamed, right eye a deep sapphire, the left a shining emerald, before reverting to their dark hue. Time skip August 13th, nearly 7 years later, and that makes 66. Kaguya tallied silently as she shut the container holding a freshly extracted pair of Sharingan. With a simple thought, she sent it into a personal subspace she had prepared in advance. 66 sets collected. Out of the 183 Uchiha still in Konoha, I know only 96 have activated their Sharingan, apart from me and Itachi. Albedo will snag some regardless, but if I can reduce his access to Izanagi, it's worth it. Denying Danzo extra eyes is just icing on the cake. I'm sure both already have backups. Black Zetsu too, probably been collecting for centuries. She clenched her jaw but steadied herself quickly. It was the night of the Uchiha purge, and most of the carnage had already played out. Cloaked in her stealth sage mode, Kaguya barely tapped into her own chakra, instead absorbing the surrounding natural energy to stay completely undetectable. It was a perilous state. Few sage users could even manage half their natural energy reserves. But Kaguya, with her 4-element core harmonized with nature, could siphon as much as she liked. Compared to the monstrous reserves she possessed, 8 times that of the Ten-Tails, what was a Jonin's amount of chakra? If she truly unleashed it, her chakra alone could obliterate everything on Earth. Luckily, that wasn't likely. When her chakra system fully developed, she'd inspected it closely and noticed a key difference. Regular shinobi had 8 inner gates. The Shinso and, later, all Fuhan had 9. She had 10, with the final one situated in the center of her forehead. Using her most powerful asset, one that forged the laws of her original universe and still ruled it, she investigated further. She wasn't just a reincarnated elder god free of all constraints. She had also absorbed the full code of the Life-Maker's power in her original world by fusing with Dynamis and becoming chaos incarnate. What she discovered was unsettling. In this world, after Kaguya Otsutsuki devoured the Shinju's fruit, history took a strange turn. She didn't just stop the warring states through diplomacy or power. She cast the infinite Tsukuyomi, basically a knockoff of Cosmo and Telechea, on the masses, enslaving minds that wouldn't submit by sheer force. This inflated her ego, letting her fully absorb Dynamis into herself. She also had just 2 sons, Hamura and Hamura, who would become ancestors of the Kaguya and Hyuga, and Uchiha and Senju clans respectively. The Uzumaki later branched off from the Senju roughly a century afterward. So while current abilities were mostly aligned with Naruto's world, this universe's ancient events were altered. During the 12,000-year rest of the Shinju, demonic energy was purged or released into the skies, while spiritual energy soaked into the planet. The Shinju, its fruit, and the 9-tailed beasts born from it were thus composed of pure chakra, powerful, emotional, and corruption-prone, but still chakra. Moreover, by consuming the 12th chakra fruit, Kaguya Otsutsuki gained the Byakugan, the Shiketsumiyaku, and a vertical Rinnegan Sharingan hybrid eye on her forehead, right where Kaguya Uchiha's 10th gate resided. Naruto Fuhan didn't believe in coincidences, and neither did Kaguya Uchiha. With extensive research using the code of the Life-Maker's records, she eventually found what she was looking for. Apparently, Hagoromo Otsutsuki could reincarnate due to sharing his chakra with humanity. making his chakra broadly compatible, especially with his bloodline. But Indra and Asura, his sons, only inherited half each, yin and yang, respectively. Their chakra alone continued cycling through reincarnation, while their souls lingered in the afterlife. Naturally, the last cycle's hosts were Madara and Hashirama. The current, Sasuke and Naruto. Great. Kaguya knew Black Zetsu had manipulated Indra, but most of the fault lay with Hagoromo himself. He shouldn't have expected harmony while deliberately dividing his power. Unlike in her original world, there were no Alba-type spirits in the tailed beasts. Hagoromo, again, was to blame. He forced personalities onto the beasts while crafting them from the Ten Tails chakra. Whether this was good or bad, she hadn't decided. What she had confirmed was that Naruto in this world hadn't met his tenant yet, even though he was older than she had been during her first encounter. His idiocy. Completely natural, though village scorn certainly didn't help. Thankfully, attacks against him were mostly surface level, with ANBU intervening before any real harm came to him. Bottom line. While Hagoromo's chakra was spread thin across humanity, and Indra and Asura's only surfaced occasionally, Kaguya required a highly compatible vessel to reincarnate. And with Kaguya Uchiha's absurd power level, it wasn't shocking she'd been chosen. But unlucky for the rabbit goddess, her chosen host was far too powerful to be overtaken, consciously or not. Even if fully restored, Kaguya Otsutsuki couldn't overpower her. With only around 5% of her essence having trickled from the demonic statue since Madara's unsealing, the elder goddess wasn't even noticed until Kaguya Uchiha accessed her status via the code. The realization hit fast. While Kaguya Otsutsuki's body had been partially used as a template, the Uchiha girl still looked purebred. She had already gene-spliced most of her previous bloodlines into her biology. She was also secretly working on a backup male Naruto body equipped with 10 gates to return home, just a side project for now. Merging all those bloodlines without obvious changes or losing her Uchiha lineage was hard, even with the code's help. If she bled in combat and someone tested her DNA, secrets could spill. She had a nearly finished failsafe, but it wasn't quite ready yet. So yeah, Kaguya Otsutsuki, this realm's so-called deity, had tried using her as a reincarnation vessel. Failing that, she'd probably continue manipulating Madara and Obito through Black Zetsu. Kaguya couldn't help but snort at the thought of Madara learning his body was just a stepping stone for the rabbit goddess revival. Refocusing, the young Uchiha teleported via shadow to the next corpse holding a Sharingan, and then the next. When she secured pair number 89, an unexpectedly high count, she sensed only 5 living presences in the clan's grounds. Itachi, Sasuke heading toward their house, Obito, and the merged Zetsu duo. The last 3 were close, probably collecting eyes too. Determining the moment was ripe, she cancelled her stealth sage mode, and donning a suitably devastated and furious expression, began sprinting, purposefully clumsy toward the Akatsuki agents. She arrived just in time to witness them stash away several Sharingan eyes. "You," she murmured, her voice barely audible, catching their attention. Her head hung low, long locks veiling most of her face in shadow. "You're the ones," she continued, her tone gaining intensity with each syllable, fury radiating off her like a wave from Madara himself. To amplify the moment, she allowed crimson tears to streak down her cheeks as she awakened her eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, jerking her head up to meet the lone eye-hole in the orange mask, staring into a surprised Sharingan gaze in a blur. She appeared beside the crouched figure, Obito, slicing clean through his right arm above the elbow before slamming her kunai into a frozen white zetsu. The black portion had already slipped into the earth. She followed with a palm strike to the creature's torso while invoking another ability. "Complete drain," she snarled as white zetsu's mass, save for a fragment of his soul and decomposed remains, was absorbed into her hand. She growled in disgust, then turned toward the fleeing Obito. Without conscious effort, her Mangekyo spat forth the black flames of Amaterasu, the fire licking at Obito mid-teleport while the rest incinerated the earth he had stood on. Scanning the area, including the Kamui space, she confirmed both Obito and Black Zetsu had retreated. Expanding her sensory field, she noted Itachi had already warped Sasuke's mind and escaped. Additionally, the Sandaime and several ANBU squads were just entering the area. Faking desperation, she dampened and sealed off most of her chakra, ensuring she'd read as only slightly above average even under medical scrutiny, then collapsed, feigning chakra fatigue. 1 week later, Kaguya Uchiha, known as one half of the final Uchiha sisters, lay on her hospital bed, staring vacantly at the ceiling. But internally, ahaha, the look on their faces, utterly priceless. She howled with laughter, remembering how the nurses had reacted when she reactivated her chakra coils and casually walked to the restroom from her private room. Her Sharingan's icy glare had shut down any protests before they could begin. She had then asked about recent events, but all she got were vague responses and reassurances that someone would talk to her soon. That had been over an hour ago. At last, the door opened and in stepped the third Hokage, accompanied by Danzo, Koharu, and Tamura, the elders of the village. "Kaguya-chan, how are you feeling?" Hiruzen asked with a weary smile. "Like I've been in a coma for a month," Kaguya replied tonelessly. "Any other survivors? And how long have I been out?" "Sasuke was discovered unconscious not far from your home. He's recovering in a nearby room but still hasn't woken up," the Hokage explained with a grimace. "You've been unconscious for a week." "I understand." Kaguya closed her eyes and sighed. "Did you manage to identify the culprits?" "Unfortunately, they covered their tracks well. The only major lead is that Itachi is unaccounted for," Sarutobi admitted. "We were hoping you could tell us more, since you and Sasuke were the only ones found alive." "I only saw one of them," Kaguya began. "He was a bit taller than you, black hair, wearing a dark cloak with an orange mask. The mask had one hole over his right eye, spiraling toward the center." She scowled. "He had a Sharingan but he wasn't Uchiha." "What makes you think that?" Danzo asked sharply. "His right hand, it wasn't normal. It looked artificial, like clay. The left seemed human though." She added, "I believe I severed that strange right hand." "We did recover it, though analysis has been inconclusive so far," Sarutobi lied, avoiding eye contact. No doubt you're suspecting Orochimaru because of the Hashirama cells," she mused internally. "Did you notice anything else, Kaguya-chan?" Koharu asked. "Yes, he had some strange clone with him," Kaguya replied with a puzzled frown. "Half of it resembled that fake hand, the other half was pure black. It had scruffy greenish hair." "What makes you think it was a clone?" Hamura inquired. "It vanished when I stabbed it and tried to drain its chakra," she replied. "Drain chakra?" Koharu raised a brow. "The only offensive jutsu I know is fire style, Great Fireball, and I didn't have time for the seals," Kaguya said flatly. "I see, that could explain a few anomalies," Sarutobi murmured, rubbing his chin. "What happened to the masked one whose arm you cut off?" "He sort of vanished into his mask. I think he was on fire. I saw black flames right before I blacked out." "So, these intruders slaughtered your clan and you managed to injure them," Danzo scoffed. "They weren't cautious, they were preoccupied with harvesting Uncle Taji's eyes," she said before doubling over the side of the bed, vomiting. Sarutobi, Koharu, and Tamura rushed to support her, all shooting Danzo looks of disapproval until he silently exited. "Feeling better now, Kaguya-chan?" Koharu asked softly. "Sasuke?" Kaguya rinsed her mouth with water. "I need to see Sasuke." "Of course. Follow me," Sarutobi said grimly. They led her gently down the corridor to a room where Sasuke was attached to medical equipment. As she approached, Kaguya frowned. "What's wrong with him?" "He was placed under a powerful genjutsu. That's why he's like this," Hamura replied after reviewing his chart. "Genjutsu, huh?" Kaguya murmured. Then suddenly slammed her fist into Sasuke's groin. Within seconds, the now-awake Uchiha boy bolted upright, eyes wild, mouth open in a silent cry, clutching his nether regions. "Pain breaks illusions. Works every time," Kaguya said with a satisfied smirk. "All right," Hiruzen mumbled, resisting the urge to cover his own. "Sasuke, how are you feeling?" Kaguya asked once his grimace faded. "Itachi, he killed them, Mom and Dad," Sasuke whispered blankly. "Did he say why?" Kaguya asked, pushing out some tears. "He said it was to test his strength," Sasuke murmured before collapsing again. "Itachi," Kaguya whispered sorrowfully. "Kaguya-chan, maybe you should return to your room," Sarutobi suggested. She nodded weakly and let them guide her back. "Itachi's been labeled a missing nin, hasn't he?" she asked after a pause. "Yes, officially," the Hokage confirmed. "Then I have a request." Her eyes met his. "I want Itachi's eyes if you recover them. There were rumors he killed Shisui. I want to verify that myself." "I understand. If we retrieve them, I'll make sure you get them," Sarutobi agreed, helping her into bed. "There are more things to discuss, but for now, get some rest. You'll be released tomorrow and we can talk in my office then." "All right." Tomorrow then, Kaguya murmured as he tucked her in and left. Once the elders were gone, she instantly scanned the room. Looks like Danzo's keeping tabs on me, she thought bitterly, detecting a cloaked ANBU bearing that all-too-familiar tongue seal. How to handle this? She smirked inwardly and unleashed her magic cancel, flooding the room with an anti-chakra field before collapsing it into a sphere around the intruder. With a flash, the agent was erased from existence. Satisfied, she closed her eyes and descended into her inner world. There, amidst the meadows of Fuhin Castle, she shifted to a darker chamber, a cold, subterranean crypt. Back to work, she said, gazing upon the translucent spirits of countless Uchiha. Using a variation of the Sage of Six Paths transmigration technique, she had reversed the concept, absorbing others' chakra and cognitive patterns into herself. She had long modified the Rinnegan's chakra absorption to sort and store chakra from those she targeted. For years, she had drained her clan's members while they slept, repeating the process with the Kaguya and even the Hyuga, despite their vaunted vision. It was only fair. After all, she had paid the Cloud delegates who tried to kidnap Hinata a little visit, and persuaded them, via Kato Matsukami, to cancel their mission due to unexpected complications. That was why the alliance between Kumo and Konoha remained relatively stable, even if this version of the Reikage wasn't nearly as level-headed or measured as the one she had once known. And given A's usual explosive temper, Kaguya could only imagine the number of times per week his fists left dents in the walls of his office. Clearing her thoughts with a small shake of her head, she redirected her focus to the task before her, analyzing the Uchiha chakra samples she had collected before extracting their sharingen. Her movements were automatic, honed from repetition. She expertly filtered out traces of Indra's chakra, however minimal it was in ordinary Uchiha, from the fresh samples, and added it to the larger accumulation she'd harvested over the years. Some of it had been granted to her by birthright, while the rest she had siphoned through careful, ongoing extraction from the clan itself. It wasn't even a tenth of her full collection, but considering it had all been taken in one night, it was a respectable addition. This time, she hadn't needed to restrict herself for secrecy's sake. So long as a little chakra remained in the bodies, an autopsy would merely reveal an unexpectedly low reserve, likely dismissed as having been spent futilely in defense. After that, she moved on to absorb the knowledge carried in the remnants of chakra, the memories of their former wielders, before snuffing out the individual imprints and merging the raw energy into her own system. When she looked up, her expression betrayed quiet satisfaction. The most dominant mass in her store remained Hagoromo Otsutsuki's, gathered from a wide array of shinobi and even civilians. While the Uchiha and some stray Uzumaki had contributed significantly, they were only part of the whole. Kaguya Otsutsuki's chakra followed, built from scattered sources but largely from her own rebirth. Indra's portion came next, then Hamura's, acquired from Hyuga and Kaguya bloodlines, and finally Asura's. Naruto and Karen Uzumaki had been the main contributors to the Asura lineage energy. Despite being fewer in number, the volume of chakra they provided nearly equaled Hamura's share. Given that the Uchiha and Kaguya were effectively extinct, and that the Hyuga would become more vigilant soon, only Hagoromo's and Asura's lines held potential for future expansion. So far, she'd amassed chakra in quantities that doubled Indra's lifetime reserves, equaled a tenth of Asura's, reached about half of Hagoromo's, gathered a tenth of Kaguya's, and secured nearly two-thirds of Hamura's. With Naruto and Karen continuing to grow stronger, she estimated that, when the time came, her Asura chakra stores would double as well. Combined with her own chakra, her reserves now equaled approximately 9 times the chakra capacity of this world's 10 tails, an upgrade from the 8-fold she'd started with. That would rise even further once she completed assimilating the foreign chakra to enhance various capabilities. Following Day Hokage's office, "I appreciate you coming, Kaguya-chan." The third Hokage greeted her warmly, gesturing for her to sit. "How are you holding up? And how is Sasuke doing?" As Kaguya approached the chair calmly, her gaze swept the room, noting all present, among them 4 ANBU, one of whom bore the unmistakable seal of root. Also in attendance were the Hokage's 2 old comrades, this time without Danzo, alongside Shikaku Nara, the Nara clan leader and the head jonin of the village, and a civilian lawyer she recognized as Fugaku and Mikoto's legal advisor. So this is that conversation, she mused inwardly, then answered aloud in a cool tone. As well as one can be after watching her family slaughtered so a few greedy bastards could harvest their eyes. Her voice was frosty, and Sarutobi visibly flinched in guilt. As for Sasuke, he's expected to pull through. I'm arranging quite a few intensive sessions for him with a Yamanaka who specializes in psychological violation. Her dry tone caused Sarutobi to wince again, though he tried to hide his discomfort. I understand, I'll refer you to Inoichi Yamanaka. While he normally works with our interrogation unit, trauma healing is one of his specializations, he offered. I suspect he's just as skilled at causing it, she replied with a nod. Still, he sounds suitable, thank you. Let's move on to the main reason I summoned you, your medical records. There are some notable inconsistencies compared to earlier checkups. One seems to have appeared very recently, around the night of the event, Sarutobi said cautiously. Call it what it was, massacre, Hokage-sama, Kaguya interrupted, her voice firm. After what I witnessed, I won't be upset by labels. Very well, the old man conceded with a nod. The first anomaly correlates with the night of the massacre. The second traces back to shortly after your birth. I think I have an idea about the earlier one, so please start with the more recent, she said, narrowing her eyes slightly. Of course. As you mentioned at the hospital, you absorbed a substantial amount of potent chakra from what you assumed to be a clone or construct created by one of the attackers. Our analysis shows it was, in fact, pure wood-release chakra, its signature nearly identical to that of the first Hokage. Were my team not so intimately familiar with Hashirama's chakra, we might have mistaken it entirely. However, there are key differences, similar to results produced by my former students' forbidden techniques. It suggests the subject was artificially endowed with Mokyuden to a far greater extent than Orochimaru ever achieved. His tone was grim. Did you manage to recover the severed hand I removed during the battle? It may help clarify things. Also, what impact did this Mokyuden chakra have on me? She asked after considering his words. We're still running tests. But from what we can tell, the attacker had Mokyuden genetically implanted. As for you, the foreign chakra is interacting with the earlier anomaly I mentioned. It's merging into your system. In time, you may even manifest would-release techniques yourself, Sarutobi explained, earning awestruck looks from those in the room. Still, the true concern lies in the older anomaly, the one holding unfamiliar power. You mean the seal located on my lower back? Kaguya asked, receiving a nod in return. Understandable. It's not every day you stumble upon an unknown seal placed by the previous Ninetales host, Kushina Uzumaki, using her own chakra and that of her beast. What? The Hokage asked, narrowing his eyes. It wasn't normal for a 7-year-old to discuss top-level secrets so casually. You're wondering how I know she was the Kyubai's previous container? Kaguya shrugged. You forget, my mother and Kushina-san were close comrades. While her status was hidden from the general populace, it wasn't legally classified like her son's. So, when I told my mother I knew about Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze's status, she told me about Kushina. How do you know that? Sarutobi nearly stumbled over his own words, overwhelmed by the flood of revelations. You mean Naruto's status? Or his parentage? Kaguya scoffed. Let's see, being called names like Fox Brat and Demon by half the village was a pretty strong clue for the former. As for the latter, she glanced at the fourth Hokage portrait. Anyone with eyes and a brain can see the resemblance. Plus, there was only one other Uzumaki in Konoha during the last 10 years. Yes, well, it seems those secrets aren't as secure as I thought, Sarutobi admitted with a cough. Now then, about the seal, she continued. It's a bloodline protection type, like the Hyugas, though it functions differently and lacks their sadistic punishment feature. It works by saturating the body with a corrosive chakra, Kyubai's in this case. Any biological material taken from the body becomes dangerously toxic to others. For instance, if someone stole my eyes and had them transplanted, their brain would likely liquefy in seconds. Her sweet smile sent chills through the room. It was applied weeks after my birth. They planned to test for side effects before using it on anyone else. I see, who created it? The Hokage asked thoughtfully. Kushina-san, Kaguya replied. Why not the fourth? Asked the solicitor, Nabusa. Despite popular belief, neither Minato nor Jiraiya were Konoha's greatest sealing experts. That honor belonged to Kushina Uzumaki. The Hurricane was devised by the second Hokage, and the Kyubai seal was a mix of two 4-symbol seals. Even the Reaper Death Seal was originally an Uzumaki forbidden technique, only later handed to Konoha. Much of the high-level sealing knowledge both Minato and Jiraiya possessed came from Kushina and Mito-sama. Kaguya finished matter-of-factly. Yes, that's correct. The Uzumaki were unmatched in the art of Fuinjutsu, the third Hokage affirmed. And since the seal required the corrosive chakra of the Nine Tails, only Kushina-san could have applied it, Kaguya pointed out. That is accurate, Sarutobi agreed with a nod. So then, how exactly did the seal respond to the presence of Mokuton chakra? Kaguya questioned him. The Mokuton chakra, it's fusing with the seal. At the same time, the seal is fading, and all the chakra it held is being absorbed into your chakra network. The Hokage paused briefly before continuing. From what we've observed, there shouldn't be any negative consequences beyond what's already occurred. What kind of effects are we talking about? Kaguya asked sharply. Kaguya-chan, I'm sorry, but the procedure has left you unable to bear children, the Hokage said with heavy regret. Oh, Kaguya responded, blinking. All right, Shikaku echoed, looking at her in disbelief. I'm 7, Narasan. I wasn't exactly mapping out my family plans yet, Kaguya replied dryly. Touché, Shikaku chuckled. Is there anything else about my medical record you needed to share? Kaguya asked Sarutobi. No. Although we're still investigating why the Nine Tails chakra is interacting with the Mokuton like this, the third sighed. That's simple, Kaguya shrugged. They originate from the same source. Excuse me, Sarutobi looked at her, stunned. You're aware the Uzumaki and Senju clans are related, right? She began. The Uzumaki descended from the Senju line, Koharu confirmed. What you don't know is that the founders of the Uchiha and Senju were brothers, sons of the Sage of Six Paths, Kaguya disclosed. I recall hearing that story when I was younger, Sarutobi said thoughtfully. It's not just a tale, it's the truth. The Sharingan is a diluted version of the Rinnegan, Kaguya clarified. And the Byakugan? Shikaku asked, interjecting. It came from the sage's brother. His descendants formed the Hyuga and Kaguya clans eventually, she explained. Anyway, the sage and his brother defeated the Ten Tails, a primal deity gone rogue, and split its power. The body became the moon, while the chakra was sealed inside the sage, making him the first Jinchuriki. That's where Mito Uzumaki got the idea to seal the Nine Tails inside herself. Before his death, the sage split the Ten Tails chakra into the current nine-tailed beasts, far easier to handle than the original. Since he had offspring while housing the Ten Tails, some of that power passed on, and both the Uchiha and Senju inherited it. If that's true, then it does shed light on how Mokuton and the Sharingan have such a strong effect on the Nine Tails, Shikaku mused. Agreed, Sarutobi nodded. I'll conduct a quiet investigation. Please do, but keep it discreet. I already have too many eyes coveting my own, Kaguya replied. Now you mention my medical file was only the first topic. Yes, Sarutobi nodded and gestured to the man beside him. This is Hidate Nabusa, your parents' legal advisor. He has their will with him today. Indeed, Hokage-sama, Nabusa said, handing Kaguya a scroll. This is the original. Most of the named inheritances were nullified due to the massacre. In essence, everything is left to their children, provided they aren't missing nin. They also specified the order of succession and guardianship. With Itachi now a fugitive and the other appointed guardians unavailable, you, Kaguya-sama, are to be legally recognized as an adult and serve as the Uchiha clan head until Sasuke reaches 20 and satisfies one of two criteria. What criteria? Kaguya asked as she read the scroll, a small tear forming in her right eye. He must either achieve the rank of Jonin or marry and father a male child, Nabusa stated. I see. Since I can't have children, he'll need more than one heir if our clan is to recover, she murmured. But why is Kaguya becoming clan head? Sasuke is the older twin, Himura questioned. Because the Uchiha don't cling to primitive ideas like birth order, Kaguya answered coolly. We use more reasonable standards to decide leadership. Such as? Koharu inquired, only to flinch when she saw Kaguya's eyes shift to crimson, 3 tamos spinning slowly in each. Like unlocking the full potential of our bloodline, Kaguya responded calmly. Ah, that makes sense, Himura said, blinking. Though why is this the first we've heard of it? Not every Uchiha paints a target on themselves the way Itachi did, Kaguya replied. I'm surprised your father didn't announce it, Shikaku remarked. Men tend to learn restraint after being kicked between the legs enough times by their wives, she said casually as her Sharingan faded. Oh, Shikaku squeaked. That said, while I recognize your new role and emancipation, I must insist you assign a responsible adult as a proxy or advisor for council sessions, Sarutobi said firmly. Until I'm officially a Konoha Kanoichi, she asked. Correct, he confirmed. Very well. Shikaku-san, since you attend these meetings anyway, would you be willing to act as my representative? She asked. Fine. Just don't expect frequent updates, he sighed. Once a month should suffice unless something major happens, she responded. So, Kaguya-sama, what's your first move as clan head? Nobusa asked politely. Would you be open to acting as my legal representative, Nobusa-san? She asked. Absolutely, he nodded. Good, then assist me in reviewing the clan's finances, Kaguya said, tapping the will. With the others gone, their assets now fall under my control, with few exceptions. I'll sort things from there. I also intend to continue at the academy. While I could likely progress faster privately, I want to avoid turning into another Itachi. Socializing is important too. That sounds reasonable, the Hokage agreed. He glanced at the time and sighed. We've covered what we needed, now we must attend the council session. Kaguya, this will be your first appearance. Prepare yourself. As you say, Hokage-sama, Kaguya replied and followed him downstairs to the council chamber. It took less than 5 minutes for Kaguya to loathe half the room, namely the civilians, Danzo, and the Inuzuka and Hyuga leaders. She shut down everything from Danzo's suggestion that she be used for breeding purposes, to Hayashi's idea of stripping the Uchiha of their great clan status. The latter angered the Hokage enough to ask Hayashi whether he'd do the same to the Senju, given Tsunade is the last one left. That didn't win Hayashi any favors from most of the council. When Tsume began mocking the Uchiha's downfall, Kaguya let some irritation show. You'd know all about family members abandoning their own, wouldn't you, Inuzuka-san? She said icily. The room fell into stunned silence. Tsume's husband had gone missing after stealing their summoning contract, abandoning her before their child's birth, a sore subject. Tsume lunged at Kaguya, only to end up suspended upside down in the Uchiha's chair, caught in ninja wire. Kaguya simply watched with impassive, spinning eyes. You, Tsume shouted in disbelief. Kaguya turned to Kuramaru, the woman's Ninken partner. Down, she commanded, voice cold and heavy with authority. The hound immediately flopped to the ground, whimpering. Interesting how your dog's better behaved than you. Shall I get you a muzzle? Or maybe leash you until you behave? She asked mockingly, trailing a finger along Tsume's face and neck, eliciting a visible shiver. Let me go, Tsume murmured. Please, she added when Kaguya raised an eyebrow. If you insist, Kaguya replied, slicing the wire in an instant. Tsume quickly backed away, wary of the remaining wire in Kaguya's hand. Inuzuka-san, Uchiha-san, I'll allow it this once. But no more violence in this room, the Sandaime said calmly, though some ninja noted the amused glint in his eyes. Understood, Hokage-sama, Kaguya said as she returned to her seat, shooting Tsume a teasing smirk. There's just one more matter, Sarutobi said gravely. Itachi Uchiha is now officially listed as an S-rank missing nin. His bounty, the Uchiha clan offers 100 million ryo for his head, Kaguya interrupted, her words sharp as blades. Kaguya, are you absolutely certain? Sarutobi began. Absolutely certain, Kaguya affirmed. And as an added incentive, should a shinobi from Konoha eliminate him, they are permitted to keep one of Itachi's sharingan. You're truly sure, Lady Kaguya? Danzo questioned. You're willing to part with one of Itachi's eyes so easily, especially given that he has likely awakened the Mangekyou sharingan. It's because he has awakened it that I'm offering it, Kaguya responded with an icy tone. And why would that be? Danzo inquired further. Every power exacts a price, Shimura. The Mangekyou sharingan is no exception. With each use, it chips away at the user's vision. Eventually, Itachi will go blind. He'll still see chakra with the sharingan active, but normal sight will fade completely, she explained. Hess, so you're basically encouraging us to act quickly if we want the reward, Shikaku muttered, half laughing. Exactly. And even if someone doesn't want to use it constantly, they could keep it hidden, only tapping into it during critical fights or for techniques, like Haddock does, Kaguya noted with a faint smirk. Uchiha affairs. In his first incarnation, the unshackled god Naruto Uzumaki began taking lives at 7, shortly after the Uchiha downfall, those lives being from Konoha. In her second life, Kaguya Uchiha started eliminating people at just 35 hours old, still Konoha shinobi, staging the deaths as incidents or illnesses, unless she needed a scapegoat to frame. This time, her targets weren't identical, though some suffered similar fates, being more beneficial dead than alive in this timeline. After dozens of swift eliminations following the Ninetales incident, Kaguya slowed down her cleanup work to perhaps one death per year, sometimes even less. But post-massacre, the need for more bad day occurrences, final days resurfaced. Erasing any sign of the Uchiha plotting a coup was common sense. Itachi didn't bother. Obito and Zetsu didn't care. But Kaguya. She stood to gain too much, and risk too much if traces remained. Neither Danzo nor the Hokage had tangible proof. Sure, they pieced things together and relied on Itachi and Shisui's accounts, but nothing written or concrete tied the Uchiha to treason more than the Senju once were. And with the death of Hiruzen, his teammates, and Danzo inevitable within a decade, all evidence would vanish. She wasn't sentimental over the massacre, but the Uchiha legacy had weight, useful weight. Sure, she could create gold with her powers and bribe a daimyo into giving her land, or kill a few kage to build a fearsome image, even if she'd been born a nobody. But why discard a reputation filled with resources? Which was why she had Fugaku and Mikoto alter their wills weeks before the bloodshed, naming her the official clan leader and stripping Sasuke of the title forever. Even if he married young, produced an heir, or reached Jonin before adulthood, he had to live to 20 to contest her, and she had no intention of letting him see that age. By recovering all documents related to the coup and auditing Uchiha assets post-massacre, Kaguya compiled a list of individuals, liabilities, debtors, or useful assets. Those in the last category were simplest. One Kato Matsukami under spiritual energy, and they'd bend over backward to help the new Uchiha head for cheap or even free. The liabilities weren't much harder. While not as easy as one Mangekyo glance equals instant success, most were ancient and easy to eliminate. The coup had ties stretching decades, with the Uchiha maintaining ties with aging merchants and minor nobles. Some lacked heirs or had heirs better erased along with them, so their fortunes passed to Kaguya through manipulated wills. She didn't make it obvious, ensuring land, businesses, and treasures came her way, while other beneficiaries received smaller portions. Even Konoha and other clans received wealth to avoid suspicion. Thus, a few dozen natural, yet fortunate deaths among the rich boosted her resources immensely. With clones enhanced by the Rinnegan, she swiftly identified lucrative and politically strategic investments. The real problem, though, were those who owed the Uchiha. Debt might sound like power, but not every debtor was useful. While debts from clans and mid-level merchants were preserved for future gain, those from irrelevant or risky individuals were either called in immediately, or the debtors were silenced permanently. One such debtor reminded Kaguya that this world diverged early from her past life, right after the Jubai became the Shinju, and that not all differences were bad. Being a female Uchiha counted among the better ones. "Kaguya-sama, your 4 o'clock is here," her aide Nabusa announced as he entered her office. "Let them in," she replied, not lifting her eyes from the large scroll she was writing on. Only when 4 seats were occupied before her desk did she glance up, then blink in surprise. "Pink hair?" she asked aloud, seeing 2 women and a child, all with that unusual hue. The girl had green eyes, the older women had blue and violet respectively. A questioning look at Nabusa prompted introductions. "This is Chizuru Nomura, her sister Shizuka Haruno, and Shizuka's daughter, Sakura," Nabusa stated. Kaguya opened the file associated with the names, her expression tightening as she skimmed the summary. She closed it with a sigh and frowned at the 2 women. "I assume I don't need to explain why your significant debt has been summoned." "No, Lady Uchiha, we understand," they both replied with bowed heads. "I would hope so. It was foolish for your husband to borrow so much without the means to repay, and you've taken nearly a dozen more loans since then, tripling the total." Kaguya exhaled and regained her composure, then tossed a scroll to Nabusa. "Handle everything written there. After that, you're free for the day. I'll conclude this meeting myself." "As you say, Kaguya-sama," the man nodded and exited. With the door closed, Kaguya made a half-ram hand sign, casting a privacy seal that glowed purple along the walls. "A soundproofing seal," she noted to their wary looks. "Now then, how exactly should I be repaid?" Her gaze swept across them. "You have no assets, no savings. As for skills, well, you already work in a brothel I own. So what's your offer?" "Lady Uchiha, we have nothing else to give. Please take us as repayment. The two women got to their knees in deep bows. Be specific. As what exactly? She asked, intrigued. Servants, slaves, playthings, anything you desire, Shizuka whispered. Just don't harm my daughter. Interesting, considering your late husband used her as collateral, Kaguya said coolly. So technically, I own her too. I know, but please, spare her, Shizuka pleaded. Kaguya reviewed the file again. Chizuru was 19, Shizuka 23, having given birth to Sakura at 16. Their debt had ballooned since the husband's death during the Ninetales attack. They had tried employment and gambling, both failures, before ending up in her brothel. Surprisingly, that venture had worked well for them, even if it cost them their dignity. And Kaguya could see why both were stunning, curvaceous, with experience and stamina. Even their willingness to be intimate with each other made them popular among high-paying patrons. Sakura is enrolled in the academy now, isn't she? Kaguya tilted her head thoughtfully, keeping her gaze fixed on the two women still kneeling before her. Yes, Uchiha-sama, Chizuru confirmed. Very well, here's the plan, Kaguya declared. You will now serve under me. Maids, cooks, pleasure attendants, whatever I demand, you will fulfill. For the time being, Sakura will continue her academy attendance. I'm giving her one opportunity since she was dragged into this through no fault of her own but birth. If she can become an active genin on her first attempt after graduating alongside her peers, she can start repaying her debt from mission earnings. However, if she fails, she will join you fully in your tasks. Understood? Yes, thank you, Uchiha-sama, Shizuka said, relieved. That said, she will still be trained in all your duties and practice them, though not as frequently as you and your sister. Kaguya smirked as she activated her Sharingan and cast a genjutsu on the two women, continuing her commands inside the illusory realm. Rise to your feet, all three of you. When the three pink-haired females stood before her, she continued, Now then, let's begin your assessment, strip. Somewhat embarrassed, the two women complied, while the young girl did so, looking confused. Not bad, very good, Kaguya nodded approvingly. Chizuru was less busty than her elder sister, her breasts firm at an E-cup, while Shizuka's were larger due to pregnancy but sagged slightly at G-cups. Both had flat abdomens and slim waists, but Shizuka's hips were wider, a result of childbirth. How shall we entertain you, Uchiha-sama? Chizuru asked. First, call me Kaguya, the dark-haired girl instructed. As you command, Kaguya-sama, the two women bowed, while the illusionary Sakura meekly mimicked them. Secondly, put on a show. Sakura, watch them carefully and learn how to perform their roles. I expect you to join them when you're older, Kaguya ordered, reclining in her chair to enjoy the display as the two women began kissing and caressing each other. Things escalated quickly, the room filling with moans and whispers as the sisters soon assumed a 69 position, and Kaguya herself began undressing to pleasure herself. All right, that's enough, Kaguya said, breaking the genjutsu, momentarily disorienting the women before they realized they were still dressed. I see you're willing to obey my commands even if uncomfortable. Now, all three of you must swear never to reveal my secrets without explicit permission and to never betray me. Swear it. I swear to never disclose your secrets without your permission and to never betray you, the three pink heads vowed, clutching their chests as they felt a strange sensation. Good, you are now bound to your oaths, Kaguya nodded, storing away the Anomos Etus Fragas. A bunchin will escort you to your new residence. You have a few days to settle in before starting your duties. Your main tasks will be cleaning the occupied houses within the compound and preparing my meals as instructed. Occasionally, I may request entertainment, but only for myself. Also, you are forbidden from engaging in sexual relations or dating anyone other than each other or the other servants I acquire. Pregnancy without my explicit consent is also forbidden. Understand? Yes, Uchiha-sama, the three responded with relief. Call me Kaguya, the dark-haired deity reminded them once again. Understood, Kaguya-sama, they nodded. Furthermore, you will take orders from me and only me. Sakura, at the academy, you are to address me as Kaguya-san. Okay, the pink-haired girl nodded. What about Sasuke-kun? He moved out of the compound, Kaguya scowled. Apparently, living here is too much for his delicate nature. I've hired someone to manage his apartment and set up a generous trust fund for him. The Hawkage probably assigned an ANBU or two to watch over him, so he'll be fine. You may leave now. She finished as she summoned a cage bunchin to guide them. 10 minutes later, the day's last appointment arrived, causing Kaguya's eyes to widen slightly for several reasons. First, the woman who entered was stunningly exotic. Red eyes, blue hair tied in a ponytail reaching her chest, a voluptuous figure with ample breasts and wide hips, a seductive yet delicate face with little makeup, and an enticing look in her red eyes. Second, she possessed unusually high chakra reserves for someone in her late 20s, with no ninja training or clan background. Almost low Jonin-level reserves, which was remarkable. Third, she was pregnant, about 3 or 4 months along by Kaguya's estimation. Finally, the faint chakra signature in her womb was unmistakably Uchiha, too similar to Indra's chakra to be anything else. "Please take a seat," Kaguya gestured at the chair in front of her desk. "Thank you, Kaguya-sama," the woman smiled demurely. "You are Rei Chiba, 29 years old, correct?" Kaguya glanced at her file. "Yes," Rei nodded. "According to this, you've worked at a brothel since you were 14, passing as older despite the minimum age being 16 for civilians without ninja training," Kaguya read. "You're also apparently a complete nymphomaniac who actually enjoyed your work there, unlike most women who had no better options." "That's correct," Rei grinned. "And you were looking forward to your debt being called in because you wanted to teach Sasuke-kun the pleasures of the flesh so he might repopulate the Uchiha clan." Kaguya's eye twitched at the quote. "Indeed," Rei licked her lips. "Well, that won't be happening," Kaguya said flatly. "Oh," Rei pouted. "First, Sasuke has less interest in women than a rock right now, and pushing it might scare him off, delaying the Uchiha's repopulation. Second, Kaguya's Sharingan roamed the woman's body with a smirk. I plan to keep you all to myself." The blue-haired woman stared at the young Uchiha in shock before smiling lustfully. "Oh, I will certainly enjoy working for you, Kaguya-sama." "Yes, you will," Kaguya chuckled. "You'll also be responsible for cleaning and cooking. You'll live here in the Uchiha compound so I can keep an eye on you." "Now about your child. I want to keep him or her if possible," Rei asked quickly. "From what I sense, it will be an Uchiha, so I want you to keep it," Kaguya agreed. "Oh," Rei's eyes widened. "I see, you seem a bit disappointed," Kaguya observed. "I hope to pass on my hobbies to her if it's a girl," Rei admitted. "I understand. If she's interested, I see no reason to object," Kaguya shrugged after a pause. "Thank you, Kaguya-sama," Rei bowed cheerfully. "Maybe one day we'll entertain you together," she grinned. "We'll see," Kaguya snorted at the woman's boldness. "Wait a moment." She stood and placed her hands on Rei's belly, casting a scanning spell. Yes, it's a girl, congratulations." "Thank you," Rei smiled broadly and impulsively kissed Kaguya on the lips. "What was that?" Kaguya scowled. Rei hesitated, realizing she'd been too forward. Her thoughts were wiped when Kaguya pulled her into a deep, passionate kiss, dominating the exchange. "Much better," Kaguya smirked at Rei's breathless expression. "Yes, it was," Rei licked her lips. "Now swear never to reveal any of my secrets without permission and never betray me," Kaguya instructed. "I swear," Rei nodded, blinking as the oath bound her. "One last thing." Kaguya placed her hands on Rei's belly and channeled Rikudo Yin chakra into the womb, enhancing the Uchiha genes. "I'll occasionally channel my chakra during your pregnancy to strengthen her Uchiha lineage." "What's the goal?" Rei asked curiously. "I want her to awaken her Sharingan earlier than usual. Ideally, she'll be born with it awakened, like the Hyuga with their Byakugan," Kaguya explained. "Don't worry, the chakra passes through without accumulating or causing harm." "Okay, mistress, I trust you," Rei accepted. "Good. A Kage Bunshin will escort you to your new home. You have a few days to settle in." Kaguya summoned the Bunshin and waved Rei off. "That was unexpected," Kaguya mused inwardly. Shaking her head, she left and sealed the office before teleporting downstairs to a secret chamber holding several diorama spheres. Back to training, Kaguya thought. Time skip, 1 year after the Uchiha massacre, Hawkage's office. "Welcome, Kaguya-heim. What brings you here?" the third Hawkage greeted. "Oh, nothing major. I just need to arrange something so I won't have to commit another Konoha massacre," Kaguya replied lightly, her left eye twitching. "Oh," the old man's cheerful tone vanished. "Apparently, no one told the village that I'm sterile and can't have children. So I've been stalked by fanboys for over 6 months, ever since I returned to the academy," Kaguya hissed. "Oh," Sarutobi blinked. "I see. No, you don't," Kaguya growled. "I've gotten indecent proposals from men 5 or 6 times my age. I'm close to castrating them the moment they open their mouths." Her Sharingan spun dangerously. "That's problematic," Sarutobi frowned deeply. What would you have me do? Well, ideally, I'd want you to hang them by their balls from the Hawkage monument, the elder grimaced. But since that's unlikely, I'll settle for something less extreme. And that would be, the old man asked cautiously. I'm planning to leave the village for a few years. I need to oversee several hidden clan caches scattered across the elemental nations and handle some business in the fire capital. Kaguya grunted. I'm afraid I can't permit that. Sarutobi shook his head. As remarkable as you are, you're still a child, Kaguya-hime. Letting you roam the elemental nations alone would be like handing our Sharingan straight to our foes. Which is why I'm here to contract a long-term A-rank escort mission. Kunoichi only, if possible. Also, I'll leave an advanced, durable bunshin here to take care of any paperwork with the clan or village council. It won't perform jutsu, but it's enough for administrative duties. Obviously, it won't attend the academy. I see, Sarutobi pondered. I assume it has a chakra reserve that must be replenished regularly. Exactly. Also, it'll be treated as a clan secret, so please don't pry. Kaguya added. I'll be traveling under a henge, so as far as the world knows, the Uchiha head remains in Konoha. I plan to return in time for the academy graduation exam with my age group, though I'll likely be back a year earlier. The third Hokage mulled the benefits and risks. Unknown to him, the senjutsu-based genjutsu he was under compelled his consent. Very well, Sarutobi agreed. One last thing, Kaguya narrowed her eyes. Everything my bodyguards witness will be strictly confidential, much of it clan secrets. I'll seal their mouths if necessary. That's acceptable, but if any of them suffer severe injuries or, God forbid, die, I expect a thorough explanation. The third stated firmly. Agreed, Kaguya nodded. Also, since I'm traveling incognito, it's best not to include anyone with too large a reputation among my guards. I don't want bounty hunters chasing me. Agreed. The elder quickly wrote the mission scroll and a receipt for Kaguya. Are these terms acceptable? He handed them over. Perfect, Kaguya nodded. I leave tomorrow before dawn. I want them at the main gate then. I'll already be under henge and my Sharingan will activate as identification. Very well. Good luck, Kaguya-hime, Sarutobi wished her. Thank you. One last thing. Kaguya gave him a measuring look. Unless you plan to appoint a fifth Hokage soon, you might consider using some Kage Bunshin to speed up your paperwork. You're not getting any younger, old man. Kaguya-hime, Sarutobi looked shocked. You're officially my favorite person. Of course, I'm that awesome. Kaguya smirked as she turned to leave. Next day near main gate before dawn, so where the hell is our bratty client? Anko Mitarashi demanded. She should be here any moment. Kurenai Yuhai replied. Yeah, time's almost up. Yugao Yuzuki added. I've been here since before you arrived. A fourth voice remarked dryly, seemingly out of nowhere. What? Anko drew a kunai but immediately froze as cold steel pressed against her neck, the others similarly restrained. Poor situational awareness. But I suppose you didn't expect an attack inside the village. Don't let it happen again. The kunai vanished and three teenage girls, about 15 or 16, stepped into view. They had waist-length black hair, black eyes, and wore black shirts and skirts with black leather boots. Crimson elbow and shin guards completed their outfits, along with fingerless black leather gloves and a red belt with a red pouch. As they gathered, they vanished in a puff of smoke. Where the hell? Anko began. Right here. The voice came from a few meters behind her, making her spin around. The same girl stood there, now with a mature Sharingan spinning in her eyes. Yugao Yuzuki, Kenjutsu expert, Kurenai Yuhai, Genjutsu specialist, and Anko Mitarashi, Orochimaru's former apprentice. The teen mused. Got a problem with that? Anko scowled. You three will do, the girl said. I'm Kaguya Uchiha. This is the form I'll travel in unless I need to change it. I expect you to keep pace. Everything you learn about me and the Uchiha is to remain secret unless I say otherwise. Understand, understood, the three said in unison, then gasped. What? Yugao began. Secrecy seal as arranged with the third Hokage. Kaguya said casually. So you don't trust me? Anko challenged. Let me be clear, Kaguya deactivated her Sharingan, narrowing her eyes. Itachi didn't wipe out my clan alone, he had helpers. Probably more than the two I saw that night. Until I say otherwise, I'll suspect whoever I want. Problem with that, Chunin, she hissed, unleashing killing intent, especially focused on Anko. Note. Some of her killing intent was close to what the Kyuubi could produce, far surpassing Orochimaru's display. All three teetered on unconsciousness. Do you have a problem, Chunin? Kaguya asked, stalking toward Anko, who was pale and nearly collapsing as she lessened the intensity. No, Kaguya-sama, Anko whimpered. Good, Kaguya smiled, stopping the killing intent. Let's move. She walked toward the gate at a casual pace, the 3 following seconds behind, struggling to overcome shock and fear. This'll be fun. Kaguya chuckled silently. Timeskip 1 month later, Kaguya-sama, can I ask what exactly we're doing here? Anko asked, looking around. Don't know, can you? Kaguya chuckled. If you try your best, you'll manage. Okay, seriously, what are we doing here? Anko rolled her eyes, having grown accustomed to the Uchiha head's presence. I'm here to find someone, Kaguya shrugged. This doesn't look like a cemetery, Yugo observed, glancing around the thick forest. It's not. Even if it were, after 12,000 years I doubt anything would remain, Kaguya said. She wasn't buried anyway, just died here and some debris fell over her. 12,000, Kurenai repeated, eyes wide. I doubt there's anything left to find. If she were human, I'd agree. Kaguya snorted. But she was a demon, well, half-demon. Like the Kyuubi? Yugo asked nervously. No, a true demon. The Kyuubi isn't actually a demon. Kaguya explained. What do you mean the Kyuubi isn't a demon? Anko looked surprised. The Kyuubi and other Biju are chakra entities with minds of their own. They used to be fairly neutral, some even kind to humans when created. Kaguya replied. What changed? Kurenai asked. Humans corrupted them. Kaguya shrugged. People complain about peace, but the truth is humans are the vilest, most depraved creatures on this world. Demons are born evil and dark, it's in their nature to do evil. Humans, however, have a choice. That's a bleak perspective, Kurenai commented. I'm a realist, I see things as they are. Kaguya shrugged. Anyway, this girl's name was Tsukuyomi. She was a skilled swordswoman and wielded a dangerous blade called the Yokatana Hinata. And you want it? Yugo guessed. Yep, Kaguya nodded. So, should we start digging? Anko asked without enthusiasm. No, that'd take too long. Kaguya shook her head. Step behind me. As the 3 Kunoichi complied, Kaguya formed a rapid series of hand signs and slammed her palms onto the earth. Daten. Yomi Kodo, she shouted, chakra surging into the ground beneath. She stayed still for nearly 5 minutes as rumbling echoed below before the earth parted to reveal a large stone spiral staircase with a square pillar in the center, descending deep underground. Okay, done, Kaguya stood. How far down? Kurenai stared. About a mile. This spot was once below sea level, but over millennia it filled up. Kaguya shrugged. Let's go. Is it safe? Yugo asked cautiously. Of course. I hardened the stone to nearly diamond hardness, that took the longest. Kaguya grinned. Really? Anko blinked. Few things are impossible. Kaguya smirked, descending as she summoned several light element Sagitta Magica floating at chest level. So, Anko asked, what was the world like when this demon girl lived? More peaceful, more beautiful. Conflicts existed, mostly racial, pure-blooded humans of Megalome Sembria versus demi-humans of the Hellas Empire. They fought a great war but later made peace. Then the cataclysm struck, wiping out nearly everyone. Of the 1.2 billion, only 10 to 20,000 survived, scattered everywhere. That's when they lost their powers, only regaining chakra used through the Rakuto Sennin about 1,000 years ago. Kaguya explained. What about the demons? Yugo asked. They had their own realm, a civilization roughly as developed as ours. They allowed themselves to be summoned much like the summon clans do today. Even though they often gave off a sinister vibe to unsettle humans, they could actually be quite decent. Kaguya smirked. How do you know all this? Kurenai questioned. And how do you keep up with so many current events too? I just have a knack for sensing the world's currents. Kaguya grinned. As for ancient history, well, let's just say some mysteries are better left untouched. Why am I not at all surprised? Anko replied dryly. Because you're getting used to it. Kaguya shrugged. Half an hour later, the group arrived at the base of the stairs, leading into a vast dome. Summoning a few more floating lights to hover near the ceiling, they stared at the skeleton, gripping a pitch-black sheathed katana that radiated a dark energy. Stepping forward, Kaguya drew the katana and pulled back its sheath, immediately being enveloped in an aura of black flames. Hina blade, Kaguya said in a demonic tone, causing the 3 chunin behind her to step back. Obey, she growled, channeling her power through the dark sword as the aura retracted into the blade. What was that? Anko demanded. Oh, I should have mentioned the sword is possessed. It takes control of anyone lacking a strong will and drives them on violent rampages. Kaguya said casually. Yeah, you really should have, Yugo said flatly. Usually a good idea to warn people about high possession risks. I'll try to remember next time, Kaguya mumbled. Next time, Kurenai twitched. How often are you planning on risking possession? As often as the chance arises, Kaguya replied with a wide smile. Where's your sense of adventure? Right behind my sense of self-preservation and common sense. Kurenai's temple visibly pulsed. Kurenai, Kaguya shook her head in mock disappointment. You need to loosen up. What does that even mean? Kurenai yelled, blushing furiously. If you get any colder, you'll never have any fun in life. Kaguya explained simply. I don't want to hear that from you. You've been hooking up with half the women we've encountered since leaving Konoha. Do you realize how disturbing it is that an 8-year-old girl seduces and sleeps with older women? The red-eyed woman snapped. Really? Kaguya blinked. Are you sure? Anko and Yugo don't seem to mind the idea of sex with an 8-year-old that much. Do I want to know what she means by that? Kurenai asked cautiously, eyeing her comrades. Neither Anko nor Yugo met her gaze, looking away with blushes visible even in the dim underground light. Please tell me you two didn't sleep with an 8-year-old, Kurenai pleaded. Oh, they didn't. Kaguya smiled slyly, making Kurenai sigh in relief before her grin turned lecherous. I did. They definitely appreciated my use of cage bunshin. Kurenai froze, her face burning as she took in what she'd just heard. Oh my, looks like little Kurenai-chan isn't as cold as she wants everyone to think. Kaguya grinned, leaning in to trail a finger along Kurenai's jaw, down her neck, and into her cleavage. Tell me, want to help me celebrate finding this sword? Kurenai whimpered, backing into the wall as Kaguya fondled her breasts. This is wrong. You want me to stop? Kaguya asked seductively, running her tongue along Kurenai's jaw. No, Kurenai moaned, and before long Yugo and Anko joined in, undressing her until she was down to her panties. W8, we can't do this here, the skeleton. Don't worry, she was a lesbian and really into S&M. Kaguya waved it off as she removed Kurenai's underwear and discarded her own clothes along with Anko and Yugo. Now, since you've been good since leaving Konoha, you get a reward. She tapped her clitoris, and in a flash, a 10-inch cock, the one that marked her as male in her past life, appeared just above her vagina. Never thought I'd actually use the magic Haruna taught me, she thought wryly. We've been good too, Kaguya-sama, Anko grinned. Yes, you have. Kaguya agreed, performing a hand sign that created several copies of herself. But let's make Kurenai-chan feel welcome first. Faced with the predatory smiles from the others, the red-eyed beauty could only whimper and rub her thighs in anticipation. The next morning waking up, Kurenai couldn't help but smile at the pleasant soreness in her lower body. But when she opened her eyes, she froze at the sight of the person she was cuddling. Oh shit, her eyes widened in panic, but then the memories of the previous night flooded her mind, exciting her anew. Totally worth it. Too bad she's not interested in anything serious later, but friends with benefits is fine, and what benefits? She eyed her lover's morning wood and slid downwards. Shortly after, Kaguya's eyes opened at the sensation below. She saw Yugo and Anko giving her a double titfuck while Kurenai straddled her legs, enthusiastically licking the cock's tip, eyes locked with Kaguya's. Maybe this should become a habit, Kaguya suggested after climaxing, rewarding Kurenai's efforts with a mouthful of chakra-infused fake cum. Definitely. Anko grinned, stealing a kiss from Kurenai's lips, followed by Yugo. As much as I want to keep going, the proximity seals I left triggered. Kaguya sighed. Enemy shinobi? Yugo asked quickly as all three hurried to get dressed. No, just bandits. They'll reach the tunnel in about 10 minutes. Kaguya shook her head and snapped her fingers, clothing herself again. I don't want anyone discovering this place. Let's pack up and leave. I'll seal the entrance once we're out. What about the bandits? Anko wondered. Kill them. You three go ahead and handle them. I want to finish with the skeleton. Kaguya instructed, leaving the chamber alone. Turning to the skeleton, a smirk crossed her lips. Now then, her black eyes shifted to demonic crimson Genshogun. Tiger right arrow, ram right arrow, snake. Dog right arrow, dragon right arrow, clap hands. That was the sequence of hand signs Kaguya performed before placing one hand on the skull and another on the ribcage, leaving a black sun symbol on her chest and a silver crescent moon on her forehead, as the king of hell breathed life back into Tsukuyomi. Biwa, the suddenly conscious brown-eyed blonde gasped, eyes darting before settling on amused Kaguya. "Good morning, Tsukiyomi," Kaguya greeted. "Enjoy your nap." "My nap," Tsukiyomi repeated. "Wait, who are you?" "Where's Senpai and Fate?" "Dead and Kaguya started, then paused. Actually, Fate might still be alive. No info on his death. He could have put himself in stasis to avoid having his life drained by that asshole Dynamis. Maybe some kind of petrification variant, she speculated. "Senpai's dead?" Tsukiyomi asked, shocked. She and the rest of Ala Alba sacrificed themselves to seal that mindless beast Dynamis became. Kaguya sighed. They worked with Vrixho Nagasha to pull the world tree from Mahura through the Ostia Gate and merge it with Dynamis. The result was a giant, mindless tree that held most of the world's Kai and mana. It was called the Shinju, the God Tree. Used to, Tsukiyomi narrowed her eyes. Every 1,000 years or so, the Shinju bore a fruit called chakra fruit, releasing vast energy into the environment. Kaguya explained. Survivors of Dynami's cataclysm avoided eating the first 11 fruits, thinking the Shinju was holy, which it sort of was. But the 12th was eaten by a princess named Kaguya Otsutsuki, granting her power equal to the Life-Maker and control over the Shinju. She used that power to either scare the world into submission or trap them in a Cosmo and Telechea-like illusion. She later had children who inherited part of her power but disagreed with her methods, preaching peace and chakra use, a stable Kaimana blend. But Kaguya was greedy, absorbed the Shinju herself, and tried to drain chakra and life from all chakra users like Dynamis. Her children, Hagoromo and Hamura, saw what she became and sealed her empty shell into a new moon and the chakra within Hagoromo. When he grew old, Hagoromo split that power into 9 pieces, the tailed beasts numbered 1 through 9, granting them consciousness before passing away. That was about 6.5 centuries ago. "Who are you?" Tsukiyomi demanded, still trying to grasp the thousands of years since her defeat. "I'm Kaguya Uchiha, one of the few direct descendants of Hagoromo still alive." The Uchiha leader smirked. "I'm also the one who brought you back." "You did what?" The blonde blinked in surprise. "What else did you expect? To still exist after more than 12,000 years." Kaguya laughed softly. "By the way, I made you immortal in the process." "Really?" Tsukiyomi responded with a sarcastic tone, her doubt clear. "Exactly. Watch this," Kaguya said, and before the naked teenager could react, she enveloped her right arm with swirling wind chakra and drove it straight through the newly revived girl's chest. Pulling back, she observed the girl's eyes widen in shock and pain. But instead of reacting, she simply tilted the blonde's head forward and gestured toward the wound, which rapidly began to close. Within 10 seconds it was completely healed. "Are you convinced now?" Kaguya asked, amused. "Yeah," Tsukiyomi coughed, spitting out some blood. "Don't do that again." "Oh. I thought you liked pain." Kaguya regarded her with curiosity. "Well," the blonde began, a sinister grin creeping onto her lips, "maybe if I got to stab you a bit as well." I'm not into pain, unfortunately." "Feeling it, that is," Kaguya mused. "Perhaps we can come to an understanding eventually, but for now, let's focus." "Business before pleasure," Tsukiyomi sighed. "Right, I'll get to the point," Kaguya decided. "I revived you because I need a skilled subordinate who's excellent at killing and preferably enjoys it." "Oh, now I see why you chose me." Tsukiyomi giggled. "Yes. My older brother wiped out our clan last year, leaving only me and my rebellious twin alive." Kaguya continued. "I don't really care about that, never liked my relatives much anyway, but it leaves me leading a clan of just 2, including myself, since Itachi is a rogue ninja." "So you need followers," Tsukiyomi nodded knowingly. "Why should I obey you?" "Well, aside from being grateful for bringing you back after over 12,000 years, Kaguya gave her a pointed glance, which earned a scoff. "There's also the fact I can undo your resurrection, turning you back into a fragile skeleton." "You can do that," Tsukiyomi cocked her head. "I'd rather not, but you're too powerful and unstable to roam free alone." "Sorry," Kaguya shrugged. I guess I owe you then," Tsukiyomi admitted. "All right, I'll join you." "Good," Kaguya smiled. "Now, since you know how things were before the cataclysm, you'll recognize this." She snapped her fingers, and a magical circle appeared on the ground. "A Pactio?" Tsukiyomi asked, surprised. "I plan to keep the Hina blade, so you'll need a new weapon and some clothes until you can shop. As much as I appreciate the view, you can't wander around naked." Kaguya eyed her body. "Okay." The blonde stood and stepped into the circle with Kaguya, then kissed her. Incredible energy surged through Tsukiyomi, transforming her body to integrate a chakra network as the pact formed. Even as the card drifted to the ground, they didn't separate. Instead, Tsukiyomi started removing Kaguya's clothes, something the Uchiha didn't resist. Half an hour later, a breathless Tsukiyomi lay spread-eagle on the floor while Kaguya dressed quickly. "That was incredible," the blonde gasped. "I'm glad you liked it, pet," Kaguya grinned, "but I have to leave now. I'm leaving Akishio Bunshin with you to serve as your guide and teacher. I've altered your body to use chakra too, but you need to learn how. It'll let me know when you're ready so we can meet again. Shouldn't take more than a year." "Okay," Tsukiyomi pouted. "Now be a good girl and don't kill anyone unless my clone tells you to. It'd be a pain to bring you back if you start slaughtering our ninja or allies." Kaguya warned as she created a Kishio Bunshin, embedding Kai, Mana, Ryuryoku, and Yaoki energy crystals to extend its duration. "Good luck, Tsuki-chan." With that, she teleported near the surface and climbed the remaining stairs. "What took so long?" Anko asked, curious. "Just paying respects," Kaguya shrugged, "in a way." "Whatever. Let's go before more bandits show up," Yugao urged. "One moment," Kaguya muttered, tapping her foot to seal the entrance with a stone slab quickly covered by grass. "Was that Mokyutin?" Anko asked in disbelief. "Probably," Kaguya shrugged. "The Bunshin I drained during the massacre had Mokyutin chakra, so I absorbed some too. Let's move." Time skip 4 months later, Digarashi Port, land of tea. "So, are we finally going to find out why we're really here?" Yugao asked, annoyed. "Yeah, you've been tight-lipped about this, and I've never heard of the Uchiha having anything in tea country," Anko added. "It's not Uchiha business, it's mine." Kaguya waved them off. "We're here because we need a boat to reach my destination, and this port is closest. So we need to hire a boat." Kurenai started looking. "I'd rather buy one," Kaguya admitted. "I don't want some random sailor knowing my plans." "That'll be expensive," Yugao winced. "I've earned over 300 million ryo gambling recently, plus bounties from taking down fools. I can afford it," Kaguya said flatly. "Fair enough," Yugao agreed. Within hours, a wealthy Yakuza boss sold his yacht for a few million ryo, and the group set sail on the Kanashai Ocean toward Negi Island. "Can you at least hint at your goal?" Anko asked, relaxing on a deck chair. "Looking for relics of a forgotten age," Kaguya answered before falling silent again. Time skip 1 week later, middle of Kanashai Ocean. "What now?" Kurenai asked, watching Kaguya gaze at the water. "I'm meditating, don't disturb me," Kaguya said firmly. She stripped to a black 2-piece swimsuit, sat cross-legged and closed her eyes. She tapped into natural energy, drawing it into her body. Instead of channeling it through her Maja Irebia glyphs, she let it flow directly through her chakra network, entering a normal sage mode. She amplified her Mokyutin chakra, entering the forest sage mode developed by the first Hokage, Hashirama Senju, to enhance his wood release. Her eyes turned golden as she extended her senses to the ocean floor, then farther and farther. The 3 Chunin stared in shock, especially Anko, who recognized the change. She knew Orochimaru was a snake sage like Jiraiya was a toad sage. Though different from the calm aura of toad sage mode, the predatory feel of snake senjutsu was unmistakable. After quietly explaining to Yugao and Kurenai, they settled to watch an 8-year-old do what only a handful of cage-level shinobi ever had. The wood of the yacht seemed to come alive in her presence, justifying her stillness for over 4 hours. Occasionally, Cage Bunshin appeared, jumped overboard, ran on water to spots around the boat, and hovered there. Eventually, Kaguya rose and walked to the railing. "I'm going for a swim." "Don't follow," she said, performing hand signs before diving underwater. She swam swiftly to a Cage Bunshin beneath her. "Daten, Chakajugen no Jutsu," she called mentally, sinking rapidly as her weight multiplied. Near the bottom, she canceled the jutsu and swam the rest under her own power. At the ocean floor, she used her senjutsu senses to find her buried target, which began shifting with a touch, until a large hole revealed a shriveled fruit the size of her torso, missing a fist-sized chunk. So this is it, the chakra fruit Kaguya Otsutsuki consumed, or rather bit into, to gain her power. Clearly, it was too much for her to swallow. She commented, then sent the last fruit born by the Shinju into a pocket dimension. Activating her Rinnegan, she connected to the Cage Bunshin above, summoning herself beneath its feet. After adjusting to pressure, she swam to the next Bunshin, which then dispersed. Repeating this yielded another chakra fruit. More shriveled, as did the remaining 10 repeats, with each fruit getting smaller until the last was about the size of her fist. Unlike the first, the other 11 were intact but degraded over millennia, having released much of their chakra into the world. Finally back on the boat, Kaguya showed only mild surprise as the 3 Chunin kunoichi lunged at her, inspecting her for any wounds. "Do you realize how worried we were?" Kurenai snapped. "You haven't surfaced for over an hour." "No need to." Kaguya rolled her eyes. "Besides, with my cage bunshin still above water, you knew I was alive." "That may be true, but not knowing what you were doing down there doesn't exactly ease our concerns," Yugo pointed out. "All right, since I'm nearly finished here, I might as well fill you in." Kaguya relented. To begin with, 8 centuries ago, humans didn't possess chakra, nor did any biju exist. The only chakra source was a colossal tree reaching the clouds, the Shinju. Every millennium, it bore a fruit that was forbidden to be touched since ancient times. Around 750 years ago, a princess from a distant land named Kaguya Otsutsuki ate this fruit and wielded its power to forcibly bring peace, either by intimidating her enemies with overwhelming strength or entrapping them in powerful illusions cast through the moon. She eventually had 2 children, Hagoromo and Hamura, who inherited part of her power. They started teaching chakra use to humans, but Kaguya wanted chakra for herself alone. Using her link to the Shinju, she merged with it and rampaged to reclaim the chakra. Her sons confronted her, extracted all chakra from her, sealing it inside Hagoromo, while her empty body was sealed into a new moon, replacing the old one destroyed in the battle. Kaguya paused. Afterward, Hagoromo gained the title Sage of 6 Paths, which you've likely heard of. Yet he still aged due to the Jubai's chakra corroding his body despite its regenerative benefits, so he divided the Jubai's chakra into 9 parts, formed massive beasts with tails, and gave them consciousness, the 9 biju. "Okay," Anko said slowly, "but what does that have to do with why we're here?" Kaguya's monstrous form, the Jubai, was sealed near here. You know how Kanoshe Ocean looks almost circular on the map? That's because the prison for Kaguya's shell was a gravity, jutsu pulling all surrounding land into a huge sphere around it, with pieces of the old moon placed atop once it reached the sky. "I was searching for relics. Did you find any?" Yugo asked eagerly. "Maybe," Kaguya grinned. "That's a secret." "Oh, come on," Anko pouted. "Sorry, but I intend to keep whatever I found down there as a clan secret." Kaguya shook her head. After all, the Uchiha descend directly from the Rikudo Sennin's eldest son, while the Senju and Uzumaki trace back to the youngest. Really, with all the hatred between Uchiha and Senju, I'd never have guessed they were distant relatives. Kurenai said in shock. That bitterness stems from the Rikudo Sennin choosing Asura, his youngest, as heir over Indra, the eldest and more gifted one. Kaguya explained. So the fiercest rivalry in ninja history is basically daddy issues? Anko asked incredulously. When Kaguya shook her head no, she added, "No offense, but the Uchiha sure are sore losers." "You think I don't know? Why do you think I don't brood like Sasuke?" "I know exactly the kind of people my clansmen are," Kaguya said flatly. "Right," Yugo shook her head. "So what now, fearless leader?" "We're finished here, we're heading north," Kaguya replied. "Where exactly?" Kurenai asked. Uzushiogakure, Kaguya smiled grimly. "The former home of the Uzumaki clan." "Are you out of your damn mind?" Yugo said slowly. "Do you know how dangerous that place is? Between the whirlpools surrounding the island and the countless traps scattered throughout the village, I'm well aware. That's why it's deserted," Kaguya sighed. "Don't worry, I have a few ideas on how to reach it safely." "That's only if we even make it there," Anko snapped. "What about the civil war in Kiri, the bloodline purges? The land of water should be the last place you want to travel through right now." Kurenai agreed. "So you want me to turn the boat around and then walk to the eastern port of the land of fire?" Kaguya looked at them in disbelief. "That would take at least a month. By boat, it's 2 weeks tops. I have better things to do than waste time avoiding Kiri-nin." "And what if we run into Kiri-nin?" Yugo pressed. "If they're rebels, I'll talk my way out, bribe if needed. If they're loyalists, well, many get lost in the mists of the land of water and never return." Kaguya replied darkly. "But," Kurenai hesitated. "End of discussion." Kaguya cut her off. "If you 3 can't handle it, I will." That silenced them instantly, and they averted their gaze in shame, recalling how a few Chunin-ranked missing nin had slipped past them to get within striking distance of Kaguya. The memory of their client turning those attackers into a splatter of blood seconds later, drenching all 3, was hardly pleasant either. "All right, you're the client." Yugo sighed. Besides, what could possibly go wrong? Kaguya smiled confidently. Time skip. A week later, land of water, me and my big mouth. Kaguya muttered as she spotted 3 dozen Kiri loyalists standing on water around their yacht. Kaguya, when I tell you to run, Yugo began firmly. Number stand down. Kaguya ordered flatly. Let me talk to them. We're all under my cage henge, so even if someone reports us, it won't trace back home. She silently thanked herself for teaching the advanced disguise jutsu. Oi, you brats, get down here this instant, the apparent leader ordered, judging by his tone and rank a Jonin at least. Is there a problem? We're just travelers passing through, Kaguya replied. Yeah, well, we gotta check you all for spies or secret messages, so come down here for a proper hee-hee body check. The response came with a leer shared by the rest of the Kirinin, all male, she noticed. Okay, coming right down, Kaguya said cheerfully. What are you? Anko started through clenched teeth. The moment I take another step, I want you to start flaring your chakra as much as possible. Kaguya instructed in a cold tone that sent chills down their spines. The 3 Chunin watched as the Hina blade materialized in her hands just before she took a step forward. Knowing disobedience would mean disaster, the 3 immediately flared their chakra as best they could. It was, however, nearly useless against the terror that descended upon the water like teleportation. Their efforts only ensured they wouldn't be knocked out instantly, though later they would wish they had fallen into the dream realm instead of witnessing it. It was a demon. No other word fit. The dark aura obscuring her features, the black flames hungry for souls, the red and gold slit eyes with black sclera that pierced their very souls. If anything deserved the name demon, it was it. And it tore them apart like wet tissue, perhaps easier. Whether it was the dark flaming blade slicing them beyond recognition, or the demonic claws tearing limbs and heads from sockets, it did it with ease, cruelty, and viciousness, spraying blood everywhere. Within seconds, the massacre ended. Kaguya returned to her original form and immediately suppressed her killing intent. Well, that was messy, she remarked dryly, forming a half-ram hand sign as the water beneath her rose and swallowed her up, then shot the red-tinged water 100 feet away, repeating a few times. A half-dragon hand sign summoned a miniature tornado that dried her quite well. A shundo step later, she was before her trembling bodyguards. What the hell? Anko stammered. You remember the dark power from when I first drew this katana, right? Kaguya asked. At their nods, she continued. What you felt just now was that power working with me, joining some of my own killing intent and amplifying it rather than opposing it. A combined psychic attack. Kurenai whispered, shocked. I've never heard of such a thing from a non-Jinchuriki, right? Kaguya smirked. Like I said, it's a demon blade after all. She dismissed the blade back into a pocket dimension and glanced around, pretending not to notice a wounded Chunin playing dead, already under a genjutsu to report a single black demonic teenage girl capable of shredding 3 dozen ninja in under a minute like it was nothing. No mention would be made of the yacht or her companions, and the man would commit suicide a few days after delivering his report to Yagura. Though she was supposed to stay incognito, building a fearsome reputation rivaling even the demon of the Bloody Mist, Zabuza Mamachi, at a younger age, would be a plus for her when she finally tied herself to Konoha. A few more appearances like this, and she'd be set for promotion to Tokubetsu Jonin if timed right, maybe even full Jonin if lucky. Time skip 4 days later, near the Uzushio whirlpools, so this is where we ended up. Anko remarked flatly. What's the plan now? Maybe she can fly? Kurenai suggested with similar dryness. I can't fly myself, but I can send others soaring across long distances. Landing smoothly is still a work in progress, preferably without leaving a bloodstain on the ground, Kaguya replied cheerfully, prompting the others to stop teasing her. So, how do we get through this? Yugo asked. The Uzumaki clan had a massive sealing formation on the ocean floor that temporarily halted the whirlpool's currents. But only a handful of people on the island knew how to activate it, and they were always confined there. Any ships wanting to dock had to send messenger birds ahead an hour or so. Eventually, someone from Konoha got hold of the activation hand signs and sold them to the highest bidder, which was Iwa at that time, Naruto explained. What? I've never heard that before, Anko exclaimed. Konoha went as far as erasing most records mentioning the Uzumaki clan, even though they're a branch of the Senju, one of the village founders. Now, all that remains are Naruto Uzumaki, an abandoned old temple, And the spirals on our backs, Kaguya said bitterly. They even wiped out the name of the first Hokage wife from most places. She was Mito Uzumaki. That's how our proud village handles its so-called greatest traitors. Act like they never existed until they strike again. It's the same story with Madara Uchiha, Orochimaru, and Itachi. She spat before continuing. Madara was childhood friends with Hashirama, so the first Hokage went easy on him until it became impossible. Orochimaru was the third's favorite student, and since he fled, the third never actively hunted him, just had Jiraiya keep tabs. And Itachi, believe it or not, he was already considered for fifth Hokage before the massacre. I'm all for second chances, but getting caught red-handed and nothing done. That's how the third Hokage runs things since reclaiming the title. He should have made Jiraiya the fifth or dragged Tsunade out of whatever hole she hid in. Instead, he lets his advisors and the civilian council walk all over him. Have you seen the garbage they teach in the academy? I'm not asking for a wartime curriculum, but damn, it's so dumbed down that the whole class could graduate just by using one E-rank jutsu before collapsing. And yes, I've actually seen it happen, she insisted, noticing their expressions. Who the hell would be that weak? Anko said in disbelief. A girl from a rich merchant family, Naruto shrugged. I heard she was captured and sold as a slave. Later, they found her in some terrible place, limbs cut off, wounds sealed crudely, filth everywhere, mind broken. She didn't last long after she was brought back. I see, Kurenai grimaced. You don't sound very upset, Yugo observed. I've seen people gouge out my dead uncle's eyes. Hearing about some weak fangirl playing ninja and getting what she deserved doesn't compare. I can sympathize as a woman, but that's it, Kaguya shrugged. Plus, she was spoiled. Well, let's drop that for now. The whirlpools, Anko prompted. Yeah, so you have the sequence for the sealing array, Yugo asked. Nope, I'm doing it the hard way. Kaguya smirked and stepped onto the water's surface. She walked until she was halfway to the nearest whirlpool, then suddenly knelt and slapped her palms on the water. A powerful energy pulse radiated from her toward the whirlpools. Gradually, the closest whirlpools slowed until they stopped completely, as did all those aligned toward the shore. The others, however, spun faster. Dividing her focus, she created a cage buncheon that dashed back to the yacht. All right, move out. The original can't keep this up forever, the clone urged. You mean she has to stay still to maintain it? Yugo blinked. How will she follow us then? I can summon her to my side, no problem. Let's hurry. The yacht soon passed the motionless Uchiha head and slipped through the opening in the land of Whirlpool's strongest defense. When they reached shore 10 minutes later, the cage buncheon turned away from the group, activated its Rinnegan, and used the animal path to summon Kaguya. Phew, that drained me, Kaguya admitted. Even with her massive chakra reserves, forcing such a technique was exhausting. She had definitely used more chakra than the 5 cage combined, not counting the Sanbai's chakra, whose Jinchuriki was the Mizukage, of course. I don't even want to know how you did that. Anko shook her head in amazement. I transferred the whirlpool's momentum in front of me to the ones on the sides, Kaguya explained, glancing at the island. They really trashed this place. Yeah, rumors say they left no one alive, Yugo said, surveying the ruined landscape. They didn't. Luckily, the seals stopping the whirlpools have alarms, and sensory arrays cover miles beyond. So they managed to reverse summon a few dozen kids with supplies out of here, Kaguya mused. No clue where though. Probably outside the Big Five, she added absent-mindedly. In truth, she was less focused on the talk and more on extending her senses and scanning the aura as far as possible. Hundreds of seals were detectable, many explosive, with around 50 large-scale Yura Shisho Fuinjutsu. She even saw where several had detonated. The sphere-shaped chunks missing from land and buildings were unmistakable. This'll take time, she thought grimly. All right, it's getting late. Let's get some rest. Tomorrow we'll be busy when we raid this place, she told the 3 Kunoichi. Can we do that? Isn't this Uzumaki clan land? Yugo frowned. Nope, the Uzumaki clan was officially declared extinct even before the Third Great Ninja War. Several nations tried claiming the territory and its secrets, but without a way to stop the whirlpools, they failed. The land's now neutral, kinda like the Land of Iron, except here no one lives or can get here, Kaguya explained. And I suppose since you're the boss, you get to claim it all. Kurenai raised an eyebrow. Actually, finders keepers, Kaguya chuckled. If you find any Fuinjutsu scrolls or books I don't know, I might talk you into selling me copies. Oh, interested in Fuinjutsu? Anko asked. Very much. The strongest jutsu ever used are Fuinjutsu, Kaguya smirked. Really? Like what? Yugo asked, intrigued. Well, the Shiki Fujin comes to mind, the forbidden jutsu that summons the Shinigami to rip out and consume both your soul and your opponent's, Kaguya said. Then there's the hack no Fuin Shiki, the fourth Hokage used to seal the Kyuubi inside Naruto Uzumaki. You know about that? Kurenai stammered in surprise. People aren't exactly subtle calling him demon or fox brat, Kaguya said absently as she headed inside the yacht. So, how do you feel about that? Yugo asked. If I were him, I'd have unleashed the Kyuubi and razed the village by now, Kaguya growled. It sickens me how they treat him. Those idiots ignore he's the only thing keeping them from becoming fox food. The fact he's the fourth son only makes it worse. What? The three Kunoichi yelled in shock. Yeah, his parents are Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki, Kaguya added. I guess we can't tell anyone else with those secrecy seals on us, Yugo said after a pause. Not until it becomes public. The kid's got enough burdens without Iwa assassins after him, Kaguya said dryly. So how many people know? Anko asked. The Hokage elders, clan heads on the council there from the same generation, maybe a few in Yuzuka from his scent. Oh, and Kakashi too, Kaguya replied. Then why didn't they do anything? Anko demanded. Politics mostly, and some resentment toward him, Kaguya scowled. Mother and Hayashi's wife were Kushina's teammates, and they tried adopting Naruto, but there was too much opposition. I plan to fix that, but I can't until he becomes a ninja. For now, the civilian council rules him. But still, sealing the Kyuubi inside his own son, Anko trailed off. If he wasn't willing to sacrifice his son, who else would? Naruto asked grimly. Jinchuriki are always connected to the cage by blood, marriage, or adoption. The Suna Jinchuriki is the Keisage's youngest son. The Kumo Jinchuriki are the Reikage's niece and adopted brother. Hell, previous Konoha Jinchuriki were married to Hokage, the first and fourth. Wait, Kushina was the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki? Kurenai asked, shocked. Yep. And before you ask, the seal weakens during childbirth, Kaguya explained. So the Kyuubi escaped while she was giving birth, Yugo frowned. No, otherwise Naruto would have died too. Besides, remember how the Kyuubi suddenly showed up in Konoha? Kaguya pointed out. No, someone exploited Kushina-san's weakened condition, abducted her, extracted the Kyuubi, and then summoned it into Konoha. Any clue who? Anko asked. Likely a rogue Uchiha, maybe even the same individual who aided Itachi during the massacre. And before you ask, he wore a mask with a single eye hole over his right eye, Kaguya explained. All right, enough talk, we have a long day ahead tomorrow. Time skip, 7 months later, not bad at all. Kaguya smiled as she slid the regular Nadachi back into its sheath. You've pretty much mastered this Kenjutsu technique. Yeah, I guess this is the limit of the moon leaf style for me, Yugo admitted. Well, as promised, I'll start teaching you the Shinmirayu soon, Kaguya said with a wicked grin. I don't know whether to be excited or terrified, Yugo said flatly, eyeing the mischievous smile on the Uchiha's face. A bit of both is probably best, Kaguya shrugged. Still, it's pretty embarrassing, Yugo sighed as they walked back to their base. Getting trained by someone who's barely a teenager. The ninja world is weird like that, Kaguya replied. Anyway, how much longer do you think we'll be staying here? The purple-haired Kunoichi asked. I need to be back in Konoha in about 3 months to recharge my special bunshin, Kaguya considered. So, I'd say no more than 2 months here. I take it we'll be on the move after that, Yugo guessed. Yeah. None of you will actually enter the village. I'll take on a new identity, meet with the Hokage, reveal myself to him, and have him summon my bunshin to recharge. Then we'll travel for another 1.5 years, Kaguya explained. Hey, are you two done for the day? We still have a few more sectors to inspect, Anko called out. Yeah, just give me a moment to prepare, Kaguya confirmed as she formed a cross-hand seal. Tajukage Bunshin no Jutsu, she shouted, and suddenly the area filled with 90 more copies of her. All right, 10 teams of 5, each with 1 original. Let's move. I never get tired of seeing that, Kurenai admitted. You've said that plenty of times, Anko teased. Not in that way, Kurenai blushed. Soon they split up, each followed by their assigned bunshin. It had become clear that the safest way to handle Uzumaki-style Fuinjutsu was to keep as far away as possible when it detonates. Hence the cage bunshin. Kaguya had lost thousands of clones to explosive tags. An hour later, After recovering a few well-hidden scrolls from blood seals, using some Uzumaki blood she created based on Kushina Uzumaki's DNA, a Kishio Bunshin emerged from the shadows before her. Yes, Kaguya asked. We finished excavating and fully restoring the Gravekeeper's palace. It's ready to be relocated. Also, we found a few other things I'm sure you'll appreciate, her Bunshin smiled. Oh, Kaguya raised an eyebrow as the Bunshin dispersed, transferring its memories to her. Oh yes, Kaguya closed her eyes, a triumphant grin spreading across her face. Without further words, she created a Kishio Bunshin to take her place and slipped into the nearest shadow. Moments later, she appeared from another shadow about 3 miles beneath where she had been before. Opening her eyes, she surveyed the vast cavern resulting from her removal of everything around the buried Gravekeeper's palace. It was that ancient structure which had drawn her to the land of whirlpools. Even in her first life, she had identified the land of whirlpools as the site of the former kingdom of Vesperation, but hadn't had the chance to properly explore. What with recovering from the Shinso transformation and dealing with the Akatsuki. If it were just for the various treasures Uzushio offered, she could have taken the entire island and trapped it in a diorama sphere. But that risked allowing seawater to seep through cracks and reach the palace. So she'd spent every day since confirming its presence, excavating around it, and restoring the area using the code of the Lifemaker inherited from her world's Lifemaker, all while reinforcing the massive cavern to support the island and sea above without issues. And now she stood before the majestic and slightly eerie floating palace, restored to near perfection. Now that's a sight I wouldn't mind seeing more often, Kaguya whispered, pleased. A few shundu later, she was on the main platform, the very spot where the ritual to unmake the Mundus Magicus had twice been attempted. It's a strange feeling, Kaguya murmured to herself. All the other memories I've taken felt foreign, requiring active integration to properly use much of the knowledge. But the memories from merging with Dynamis, it's almost like his and the Lifemaker's memories were my own. Shaking her head, she followed a cage Bunshin into what had been arranged as a vault by the working clone. Upon reaching it, she deactivated the security array and stepped inside, then froze. Oh yes, she beamed broadly. There, displayed on a pedestal among other treasures, was the Great Grand Master Key, alongside the 7 Grand Master Keys and the 1,000 Master Keys nearby. It had only taken her 10 minutes, after realizing the world's complete stability, to deduce the keys remained intact, especially the Great Grand Master Key. If she could learn exactly how the world's stability and the integrity of the Great Grand Master Key connected, she was confident she could repair the damage in her original world. But until then, grasping the Great Grand Master Key, she tapped into its power, linking it with her own control over the code, and grinned wickedly as she closed her eyes. Code of the Lifemaker, Kaguya began before snapping her eyes open. Right, in a dazzling flash, mana particles coalesced into a red book. Diarium Ijus, she declared with satisfaction. Opening it, she confirmed it was the real thing, a physical record of her own thoughts. Few knew the Pactio system was part of the code of the Lifemaker. The code automatically created perfect records of any item meeting certain criteria, from power and notoriety to effects of interest, that had ever existed within the Mundus Magicus, or within a 10,000-mile radius of any gate port. It also linked to future versions of itself through Cassiopeia time travel, as evidenced by Chachimaru's satellite laser cannon, which the genius girl had created in her own era. For a moment, Kaguya considered summoning the Cassiopeia of space that allowed travel between parallel worlds and going home. But the instability of new unbound gods crossed her mind, and she discarded the idea. Whatever, they'll be waiting when I return. And if not, she closed her eyes. There are plenty of unbound gods to vent my frustration on, she hissed darkly. Shaking her head, she closed the book and placed her left hand over it, the black crescent moon symbolizing Rikudo yin power on her palm radiating a dark aura that enveloped the Diarium Ijus. Then she stretched out her right hand, the white sun symbolizing Rikudo yang power glowing lightly, and placed it on the book as well. Onmyoten, Banbutsu Sozo, she called, and in a flash of light, a perfect physical copy of the Diarium Ijus formed, no longer a temporary mana construct like Pactio artifacts. Success, though it's terribly inefficient, her satisfied smile faded to a frown. I need more training, or better yet, a teacher. She muttered, shaking her head before setting the book aside and focusing back on the great Grand Master key. Code of the Life Maker, right, Comptina Demonia, she commanded, and the demonic ring that could divine others' names appeared as the book had. Code of the Life Maker, right, Oris Recitans, she continued, and an earpiece with multiple clips materialized. She took a break, then used Onmyoten, Banbutsu Sozo again to fully manifest these items. Now, what other artifacts from home might I need handy? Kaguya pondered briefly, then nodded. Code of the Life Maker, right. Orbis Sensualium Pictus, she said, and a magical encyclopedia appeared. Code of the Life Maker, right, Insis Exorcisms. A horizon appeared and she paused. Picking it up, she channeled her power and will through it as she swirled the metal fan, transforming it into a massive sword of exorcism, which she set down with a pleased grin. Code of the Life Maker, right, Shinshin Tetsu Jizekin. A heavy martial arts quarterstaff clattered to the floor. Code of the Life Maker, right, Flabellum Yuri et Flabellum Austral. 2 folded fans appeared. Code of the Life Maker, right. Take Mikazuchi. A double-edged sword with a glowing orb linking blade and hilt materialized. Code of the Life Maker, right, Tengu no Kakuramino. A black cloak appeared but vanished upon touching the ground, though she could still sense it. Code of the Life Maker, right, Skeptrum Virtuale, she called hesitantly, as the heart-topped staff that dealt with technology wasn't something she expected to use soon. Code of the Life Maker, right, Adiutor Solitarius. An opera mask appeared, and Kaguya smirked at the stealth possibilities this artifact offered. Code of the Life Maker, right, Rosa Influentia. The red rose that appeared broadened her smile, removing many limits she'd faced in extending her influence. She paused briefly, recalling another artifact that had appeared among Nega's companions. It wasn't particularly practical as a weapon, but useful as a daily tool. Code of the Life Maker, right. Magica Ferrum Alem. An iron pot materialized, soon followed by 9 more as the Uchiha leader harnessed the power of the world's creator to forge cooking utensils. Code of the Life Maker, right. Diabolo Piero. A pair of leathery devil wings emerged, and Kaguya wondered if the rabbit goddess's influence was at play. Given she had just fashioned a portable Cosmo Entelechea / Mugen Tsukuyomi that required neither a third Rinnegan sharing an eye nor the Biju. Code of the Life Maker, right, to Furon to Biographicanus. She continued, summoning a book with a bookmark capable of recording and reproducing a person's entire life. Code of the Life Maker, right. Omicron Etero Omega Sigma, Mu Epsilon Tau Alpha, Chi Iota Lambda Iota Omega Nu, Pi Rho Omicron Sigma Omega Pi Omega. She smirked as the broadsword-shaped artifact granting Rakan the title of Thousand Blades appeared. Code of the Life Maker, right, Signum Biolegends. An innocent-looking bookmark appeared. Code of the Life Maker, right, Incompetentia Infinita. A fist-sized white cube containing an inescapable dimension formed. Code of the Life Maker, right. Herraria Porticus. The hourglass controlling time manifested. She paused again, employing the Onmyoten, Banbutsu Sozo to fully manifest these artifacts, then checked the code records for more. They're not here. Looks like they were never created in this world. Or rather, now that I think about it, she fell into thought, considering seemingly absurd yet plausible scenarios. Forget that for now, if the element rings aren't here, they aren't. I'll just move forward, she decided. Code of the Life Maker, right, Tesega. Code of the Life Maker, right, Tensega. Code of the Life Maker, right, Bakusega. Code of the Life Maker, right. Sawanga, she recited swiftly, and the 4 Yaokai blades appeared before her. Code of the Life Maker, right, Pallium Umbrarum. The black cloak of shadows took form. Code of the Life Maker, right. Yamato, a devil blade she had uncovered while researching artifacts from some Biju of her home realm appeared. Code of the Life Maker, right. Ebony et Ivory. 2 M1911 style pistols materialized, 1 black, 1 silver. Code of the Life Maker, right. Electro Proiectum Tormentare. A massive handheld railgun formed. Code of the Life Maker, right, Cassiopeia. The time-bending pocket watch appeared, then she concluded with Code of the Life Maker, right. Cassiopeia Spatium. The dimension-warping pocket watch appeared alongside it. Exhaling, she used Banbutsu Sozo to manifest all the recently summoned items. Well, that should suffice for now. Kaguya mused as she stored most of the artifacts in separate pocket dimensions, leaving behind only the Diarium Ejus, Comptina Demonia, Oris Recitans, and the Cassiopeia Spatium, the last of which she tossed to Akishio Bunshin. Turn these into a spell, a seal, and a jutsu like the temporal relocation I devised back home. Don't test anything yet. I want to consult Amadaru first. I need to confirm if I can send a Kishio Bunshin out of this world even if I'm unable to leave myself. She then created a cage Bunshin, handing it the 3 remaining artifacts, 2 scrolls, and a sealing brush before reclining on the floor. The Bunshin unrolled the first scroll, spreading it out. It made a small cut on Kaguya's right index finger to draw blood, which it dipped the brush into, and inscribed the symbol for ring in an empty section of the scroll. The Comptina Demonia was placed on top and the seal activated. The Comptina Demonia glowed and sank into the seal, which then flowed into Kaguya's finger wound, instantly healing it. Mentally reaching out, Kaguya smiled as she sensed its presence. Next, the Bunshin unrolled the second scroll beside her. She made 3 cuts, 1 on her earlobe and 2 on the upper ear. She drew 1 bloody line at one spot, and 2 at another on the scroll. The diarium Ijus, with clips attached, was placed on the single line, and the Oris Recitans earpiece on the 2 lines before the seal activated, absorbing the artifacts and channeling them into the corresponding wounds on Kaguya's body. A quick check confirmed they functioned properly. Well done. Kaguya nodded to the Bunshin before it vanished. Now I have a fully operational mind-reading tool, superior even to the Yamanaka well, at least for reading thoughts in the present moment, which was my goal anyway. For a full mind scan, I can still use the human path of the Rinnegan. She smiled proudly before turning her attention back to the other relics unearthed by her Bunshin. After all, the excavation had now covered most of the territory of Old Ostia, so there was much to recover from the former center of the magical world. And since this very building had been the Lifemaker's main base, the world's creator who forged the Magia Erebia, granting deathlessness immortality, and achieved ceaseless immortality himself, Kaguya felt it wasn't surprising to find some of his research notes. Given Amadaru's own semi-immortal status despite occasional aging, it was almost certain there would be something. Thus, she was genuinely astonished and left staring in shock at the vast collection before her. A few philosopher's stones, the magnum opus of alchemy and reputed source of the elixir of life. From memories of Dynamis and the Lifemaker, she knew there were actually 2 elixirs. The panacea, which healed and cured all ailments, and the elixir of youth, which de-aged the drinker proportionally to the amount consumed. Both also temporarily enhanced magical power. It had been Amadaru's preferred immortality method, allowing her to stop taking it and die at will. 8 golden apples sealed in crystal stasis, source of the Norse gods of mundus vetus immortality and eternal youth. Eating one would de-age a person to their prime, freeze aging, and grant a strong immune system plus rapid healing, though effects lasted only a century. A dozen peaches of immortality in crystal stasis, source of longevity for the Chinese gods of mundus vetus, served at the Queen Mother of the West, Zai Wangmu's Feast of Peaches. Eating one halted aging for 5,000 years, and protected from disease and poison. Not quite the legendary 360 years of life from scent, and 47,000 years from eating, but close. A large gourd of soma in stasis, source of divinity and immortality for the Hindu gods of mundus vetus, alongside sacks of the same plant also preserved. Drinking effects resembled the golden apples, adding divine empowerment lasting 1 to 6 decades depending on amount. A bottle of ambrosia in stasis, source of immortality and divinity for the Greek gods of mundus vetus, with a sack of matching fruit. Effects were similar to somas, but also turned the user's blood to ichor for a year, a golden, lethal liquid to mortals. Staring blankly at the monumental hoard, Kaguya reached into a pocket dimension and withdrew a Pactio card, pressing it to her forehead. "Say, Amadaru," she began. "Yes," the unbound elder goddess of death replied. "Did you happen to leave your stash of immortality items back in my world?" Kaguya asked. "Only the philosopher's stones. I used all the others and every reserve of panacea trying to empower myself against Dynamis." Unfortunately, her voice turned embarrassed rather than sorrowful. "You were too late," Kaguya guessed. No, I sort of kinda," she mumbled. "Yes," Kaguya pressed with a wide grin. "I messed up and drank all my elixir of youth, okay," she said defensively. "From what I remember, you were physically in your early 20s then. How much elixir of youth did you have?" Kaguya asked, unsure she wanted the answer but couldn't resist. "Enough to make myself centuries younger," came the flat reply. There was a brief silence. So you became an unbound elder goddess by de-aging yourself out of existence? Kaguya asked in disbelief. Doing it while hyper-empowered, actually. From what I understand, most of my alternate selves as reality-bound Shinigami had only minor or no empowerment when they failed. Amiduru explained, embarrassed. And people said my way of becoming an unbound god was ridiculous. Kaguya deadpanned. Anyway, you told me that consuming this world will stabilize me, but if I take some things with me into my pocket dimensions, maybe even bond them to myself, they'll still be mine, right? She asked. Basically, you're asking if you can keep some of these immortality products when you leave, Amiduru asked, amused. The answer is yes, as long as they're not present in the world when you consume it. Storing them in pocket dimensions works fine, just don't link them to anything in that world except yourself. Got it. Oh, one more question. I understand I can't leave this dimension, but can my Bunshin do that? Kaguya remembered to inquire. I'm currently working on crafting a spell, seal, or jutsu that allows travel between parallel worlds like the Cassiopeia Spatium does. Yes, but just don't leave yourself behind, or that world will instantly collapse. Also, don't bother trying to send them to your home dimension. It won't work. That reality is sealed off even from the unbound gods until you stabilize your power. Likely because it's considered part of you, even though it wasn't consumed when you became unbound, Amiduru cautioned. I understand, that's helpful to know. Thanks for the information. Goodbye. Kaguya ended the call and put the card away before pulling out the Orbis Sensualium Pictus, focusing on the items before her. Let's see. The Philosopher's Stone is purely magical, mana-based, while the golden apples and peaches of immortality are mostly Kai-based with a minor magical component. The Soma contains Kai, magical, and spiritual aspects in almost equal measure, as does the Ambrosia, though its nectar carries a slight demonic influence responsible for the ichor. Kaguya quickly deduced before turning her attention to producing more of the immortality items. The Philosopher's Stone is easiest to produce if you know how. Just draw the array, place a mana crystal within, and activate it by killing a living being. Human or animal, it apparently makes no difference. The array then absorbs ambient mana, liquefies it, and eventually crystallizes it around the mana crystal into the Philosopher's Stone. The stone will continue to grow in size and power as long as the array remains active. She smirked, already formulating ideas on where to place such arrays, after enhancing them heavily, naturally. The other four depend on existing materials and are thus trickier to replicate. The seeds from the apples and peaches can't be extracted without consuming the fruit, and I don't want to waste them, considering how long it takes for the trees to grow. Oh, wait, the growth time depends entirely on how rich the soil's energy is where the seeds are planted. So I could probably accelerate the process immensely with Senjutsu-enhanced Mokuton. The same goes for Soma and Ambrosia crops, though I could start those immediately. She paused as a thought crossed her mind. Tilting her head, she weighed the chances of her plan succeeding and the risks if it didn't. It was very tempting, and logically there was no reason it shouldn't work. In fact, oh, to hell with the consequences, I'm doing this, Kaguya declared firmly. Even if it fails, I'll still have several of each fruit to work with, and I'm in no rush to make anyone immortal. So far, the only one worth the effort is Tsukiyomi, and I've already made her immortal. Anko, Kurenai, and Yugao might reach that level of trust soon enough, but I can just use the elixir of youth for them when needed. My foolish alternate self could be an option if he lives long enough to be useful, since it would help ensure the Biju don't switch hosts too often. That's probably a decade away at least, she muttered darkly. Nodding decisively, she took one of the crystalline-cased golden apples and broke the containment. Gazing at the fruit in awe, she admitted it truly radiated legendary power. Without hesitation, she placed her right thumb, index, and middle fingers together at the apple's base and channeled a bit of Mokuton chakra into it, willing it to alter its form slightly. Soon, a small hole appeared as she spread her fingers. Turning the hole downward and shaking the apple caused the seeds to fall into her open palm. She quickly sealed the fruit back up and was pleased to see it remained undamaged after a thorough magical scan. Examining the seeds, she returned to the Orbis Sensualium Pictus and checked for any time restrictions on either seed type. Finding none, she applied a stasis spell on them anyway before repeating the process with a peach of immortality. Looking between the apple and the peach seeds, she contemplated her next move. On one hand, she could reseal them in crystal until needed without any risk. On the other hand, nothing ventured, nothing gained. She smirked confidently, vanishing in a flash of black. Reappearing in the same black flash, she strode purposefully toward the center of the underground chamber. This place was known as the Gelal Vein, a system Negi had created to draw energy through the gate port into Mundus Magicus and crystallize it. In his old world, it converted it to pure Kai crystal, but here the final calibration seemed incomplete, combining mana and Kai crystal deposits into chakra crystal, a remarkable feat, as such instability would usually cause catastrophic explosions. Kaguya reasoned the Shinju stabilizing itself as a chakra tree was a key factor. Speaking of the Shinju, the massive self-destruct array that once occupied the entire floor of the mine's core was gone, replaced by a precisely shaped block of chakra crystal Kaguya had extracted from the Gelal vein. She had crafted over 100,000 interconnected groves within it, creating something unseen in this world, or the previous one, a three-dimensional Fuinjutsu array. Instead of ink, Kaguya had filled the gaps in the giant chakra crystal with Mokutan-grown roots connected to the 12 chakra fruits, which now appeared far more vibrant than when she found them months earlier. Naturally, they were draining the entire Gelal vein to restore themselves to the state they had when detached from the Shinju. Well, at least the first 11. The 12th, the one Kaguya Otsutsuki consumed, would always lack a portion of its power as long as the rabbit goddess existed. Hell, she also retained a portion of that power, but it was too useful now to discard just to make the rabbit aspect chakra fruit whole. Perhaps later. For now, the ability to track black Zetsu and shield spaces from its senses was far too valuable. It would be disastrous if black Zetsu showed up and stole the chakra fruits. She had also disabled all spacetime jutsu near the vein, except the Hurration and Shadow teleportation. Hell, she even located the elder Kahiko, leader of that wandering caravan, and sealed his memory of the vein's location in case of future invasions. Approaching the dragon aspect chakra fruit, the first of the fruits, she placed a hand on it while holding the golden apple and peach of immortality in her other hand. A bit of Mokutan later, more roots sprouted from the fruit and connected with the apple and peach before absorbing them completely, then retracting. A quick diagnostic showed Kaguya grinning with satisfaction. Not only were the apple and peach fully compatible with the chakra fruit, but they accelerated its recovery significantly and infused it with their amplified properties. Oh yes, this will work perfectly, Kaguya chuckled. 6 more months and their regeneration will peak. The Uchiha and the Senju, let's get this done, Kaguya sighed mentally as she approached the Konoha gate guards. Excuse me, could you tell me where I might hire some ninja for a mission? She asked softly, adopting the voice of a frail old woman. Ah, you want the Hawkage Tower, it's the big building over there, Izumo quickly pointed out. I see, that large red one. Thank you, young man, she smiled and walked off. I wonder if they'll even remember to check my papers. With this Senjutsu-enhanced Genjutsu making them underestimate me, probably not. Almost 3 months had passed since she discovered this world's Amatoru's immortality products, and she had been extremely busy. Her first priority was to establish alchemic arrays, to create more philosopher stones. She initially considered placing them secretly in the summon realms, but abandoned that due to the likelihood of detection by the sages. Also, despite the risk of someone discovering them in the elemental nations, she preferred to keep her projects out of the summons dimensions. Then an idea struck her. Based on the array's description, most of the mana from the sacrifice was absorbed into the forming stone. This was partly why so few knew how to make philosopher stones. Many who did had been slaughtered after unscrupulous mages realized it was more efficient to sacrifice large groups at once, instantly creating stones, instead of waiting months or years for crystallization. So Kaguya decided to use that. Instead of sacrificing many people at once, she arranged the array to drain the majority of mana, not only from the sacrifice that triggered it, but from anyone who died on it while active. To make it even better, rather than setting up arrays in this era and waiting for deaths, she traveled back several hundred years to just before the clan wars intensified. Wasn't it convenient that the most common and bloodiest battlefields were so well documented? It hadn't been too challenging either to make the arrays invisible to black Zetsu by incorporating some of the rabbit goddess's chakra into a chakra dampening array. The most difficult task was burying the several thousand granite tablets, each inscribed with an alchemic array for philosopher's stone creation, about a mile beneath the locations she had chosen. Each major battlefield contained hundreds of arrays. Only the hidden villages featured a single large array, mainly because Kaguya simply wanted to compare them. As things stood, she intended to retrieve most of the philosopher's stones that had been produced by her arrays shortly after the chakra fruits were restored. The only ones she planned to leave untouched for a while longer were those in Konoha and the Land of Water, but only until the Sunuoto invasion occurred and the Civil War concluded, respectively. She had also stationed several long-lasting Kishio Bunshin in Yuzushiogakure to tend to the Soma and Ambrosia plants, as well as cultivate a new peach tree and a few apple trees to boost her resources, along with a few others assigned to learn, practice, and hopefully master alchemy. While she could easily create precious gems and metals, it was wise to have alternatives. Besides, attempting to produce the elixir of life without proper expertise would be reckless. Shaking her head, she smiled at the Hokage as she was led into his office. "Welcome to Konoha. How may we assist you?" the third Hokage began. "You might want to tighten your security, it's terrible." Kaguya deadpanned, and in a puff of smoke, she appeared before the elderly man in her 10-year-old form. "Kaguya-hime," Sarutobi stared at her in surprise. "Do you know any other female Uchiha my age?" She activated the Sharingan with a sly grin before deactivating it. "How have you been, Hokage-sama?" "I've been well, thanks in no small part to you." The third Hokage smiled faintly. "While I can't produce as many Kage Bunshin as before, having a few to help with paperwork has significantly eased my burden." "Good to hear. I suppose you know why I'm here," Kaguya remarked. "Indeed, I'll have your Bunshin summoned soon. I admit, I'm surprised it lasted this long without needing a recharge. Although, since it only uses chakra to maintain its form, it's not that shocking." Sarutobi mused as Kaguya resumed her disguise, then called in his secretary to summon Kaguya. Before long, the Kishio Bunshin arrived, observing them with curiosity. Kaguya deliberately reached into her pocket and withdrew a scroll, handing it to her Bunshin. "Here, another year and a half's worth of chakra," she offered. "You know how to absorb it, do so privately." Sarutobi nearly pouted at missing the chance to see how the clever jutsu was sustained. Unbeknownst to him, it was just a performance. The energy crystals within the Kishio Bunshin were continuously drawing ambient energy to keep it well supplied. "Anything noteworthy to report?" Kaguya asked absent-mindedly, placing a hand on the Bunshin's head and using the human path briefly to absorb its memories. "Well, that girl you sent, Tsukayomi Iwai, arrived safely. After some tests and a probation period, Hokage-sama promoted her to Chunin. She's also a vassal of our clan, just as your message instructed." The Bunshin responded. "Chunin, I thought you'd make her work harder for her rank." Kaguya looked questioningly at the Hokage. "Well, despite her somewhat unstable and sadistic personality, I can't deny she's one of the finest kenjutsu practitioners I've seen or heard of. Coupled with her wind and fire manipulation, she's a nightmare on the battlefield." The old man shrugged, grimacing. "The only reason she isn't Jonin yet is to avoid aggravating some of our current Jonin." "Do I want to know why?" Kaguya eyed her Bunshin. "Well," the Kishio Bunshin smirked. "Tsukuyomi shredded Kakashi's book and set it aflame when he didn't take her seriously during evaluation. She also tore Guy's jumpsuit to pieces while he was still wearing it, leaving him completely exposed. Yes, he was going commando that day." "All right, then I assume she'll be a Jonin by the time I return for good," Kaguya asked the Hokage. "Most likely, though I doubt I'll ever approve her leading a genin team." The old man shuddered. "God forbid." Kaguya nodded. "I like her, but leaving impressionable kids under her care is a disaster waiting to happen. I do plan to learn kenjutsu from her though." In other news, Naori-chan will be too soon. Both she and Rei are well, as is everyone else at home, the Bunshin informed her. A genuine smile lit Kaguya's face at the mention of the youngest Uchiha, her servant Rei Chiba's daughter, with one of her Uchiha clients during her time as a prostitute. The child's birth had gone perfectly, and according to the Bunshin's memories, the girl could activate her Sharingan easily, though only accidentally so far. Apparently, the chakra treatments during pregnancy had worked. "What about Sasuke?" Kaguya asked. "Misaki gave him a harsh scolding just the other day for trying to sneak out some advanced jutsu scrolls he's nowhere near ready for from the library." The Bunshin frowned. Not the first time either, that boy is a menace. I take it he's still on the emo revenge kick. Kaguya rubbed her forehead. Yes, came the blunt reply. I still have Misaki watch him occasionally, but he's obsessed, I know. Give Misaki my thanks. Kaguya sighed. Misaki Shiromo was the fourth and final adult servant Kaguya had acquired by calling in civilian debts. Surprisingly, she had recently retired from ninja life despite being only 26. Specializing in seduction, intelligence gathering, and interrogation, it wasn't unusual she'd grown tired of the job. Konoha never forced ninja on seduction missions, but several operatives did so, and even then, there was a limit to how much a person could endure. Most got reassigned. Misaki wanted out completely. She had never been particularly gifted despite being a strong chunin, she simply lacked interest. Becoming a ninja had been her best chance to survive as an orphan since birth, and she chose seduction missions because they involved less combat risk. Even patient and tolerant as she was, she had her limits, and she made them clear by strangling those who tried to take advantage of the local beauty. And she was a beauty, with yellow eyes, long dirty blonde hair, and chocolate skin. Not to mention a body to die for and few qualms about showing it off. Her usual attire consisted of sandals, panties, and a Chinese-style dress that left her back bare, showed ample cleavage, and split below the breasts to reveal her panties. Regardless, she willingly became Kaguya's servant and secretary. She was also assigned to watch Sasuke to ensure he didn't do anything reckless, like practicing fire elemental techniques indoors and nearly burning down his apartment. That incident had been close, leading Kaguya to thoroughly reprimand him and order Misaki to tie him up and administer a harsh spanking whenever he endangered himself or others. So far, it had happened only 5 times, but Kaguya was fully aware he would only grow more troublesome with age. Perhaps one of her other maids should take photos of him being spanked. The threat of those reaching his fangirls might serve as a good deterrent. Well, I should be going. Mitarashi, Yuzuki, and Yuhai send their regards. Kaguya turned to the Hokage. How are they? Sarutobi asked. They're doing fine, but you should probably test them for Jonin when we return for good. I can tell they've improved quite a lot since they left. Kaguya informed him. Oh, for example, Kurenai's genjutsu can sometimes even fool my Sharingan now. Kaguya said. It was true, as when not taking it seriously, Kurenai's illusions could affect her, especially since she was learning Inton from Kaguya, who herself learned it from the second Mizukage. Wasn't the Edo Tensei human path combo just incredible? Is that so? That's impressive, Sarutobi mused. Well, I won't keep you any longer. Soon after, Kaguya slipped out of the village and met her 3 Chunin bodyguards. How did it go, boss? Anko asked. Meh, nothing special, Kaguya shrugged. Snuck in, met the old man, had him summon my bunshin and recharge it, then snuck out. Sounds easy enough. Yugo agreed. Okay, let's move, Kaguya commanded. Where to now? Kurenai asked. Another treasure hunt. Nope, I need to see a medic, Kaguya replied. Are you sick or something? Anko frowned. Not that I know of, Kaguya said. But I want to fully understand the changes my body underwent from assimilating chakra during the massacre. Couldn't you get that checked in Konoha? Anko asked irritably. Konoha's medical nin don't understand what they're dealing with, Kaguya scoffed. No, I need someone with deep knowledge of genetics and bloodlines, and frankly, there are only 2 options. And since I don't want to meet Orochimaru, you want to see Lady Tsunade? Yugo asked thoughtfully. That might take some time, she admitted. It's going to take some effort, but I'm ready to spend half a year if that's what it takes to get my answers, Kaguya said with a frown. Kaguya-chan, did something happen? Kurenai asked cautiously. My eyes have turned purple, Kaguya confessed, and I have no idea why. You mentioned you thought the guy whose clone you drained had yellow eyes, Yugo frowned. But even if he had the first Hokage's DNA, the first Hokage had black eyes. That's exactly why I want to understand why mine changed to purple, Kaguya stated dryly. I'd prefer to know about any other changes ahead of time, especially if they might be more serious. Come on, what's the worst that could happen? Anko wondered aloud. Do you remember how I told you that the Uchiha and Senju clans come from Rikudo Sennin's 2 sons? Kaguya asked. Yeah, so? Anko blinked. Well, Rikudo Sennin had horns, Kaguya emphasized. Well, you're already kind of horny, aren't you? Anko joked nervously. The looks the other 3 gave her quickly shut her up. All right, how do we find Tsunade? Yugo cut to the chase. We find the nearest gambling den and ask around about the legendary sucker, Kaguya shrugged. The what? Kurenai asked incredulously. The legendary sucker. That's Tsunade's nickname because of her gambling habit and terrible luck. She always ends up losing. The only times she actually wins something, it's because something really bad is about to happen. I heard her last big win was right before the Third Great Ninja War began, Kaguya explained. Is that even possible? Anko stared in disbelief. I mean, I knew her luck was bad, but it's true. And I heard she inherited it from the first Hokage. Apparently, he was the one who taught her how to gamble, Kaguya said deadpan. Okay, so where do we start? Kurenai asked. Follow me. Kaguya smirked as she leapt into the trees. Time skip, 2 months later, Yakumigai, all right, she better be here, Kaguya muttered. It had been a long and stressful search for the wandering female Sannin. They traveled through most of the Land of Fire, and even some allied nations. Finally, they tracked her down in Yakumigai, in the south of the Fire Country, where she'd apparently already lost a couple million ryo in less than 5 hours. Luckily, she didn't owe any debts to local lenders, so she was probably going to stay a while longer. Relax, Kaguya-chan, Kurenai patted her shoulder. I'm relaxed. Don't I look relaxed? Kaguya snapped. It's not like I've been chasing an old drunk with a gambling problem for 2 months. Oh wait. Okay, I get it. Kurenai backed off. She's in there, Kaguya sighed, peering through the door. Thank the Shinigami for mercies. Shinigami, Yugao raised an eyebrow. Hello, ninja, dishing out death is a big part of what we do, Kaguya pointed out. All right, I can get behind that, Anko nodded. Now then, let's get this over with, Kaguya muttered and stepped inside, only to be slammed into by a man and thrown across the room. That's it, Kaguya snarled internally, and moments later the same man was flying back at Tsunade. Who threw that? Tsunade yelled as she tossed the man aside and out the window. That be me, got a problem with that, Granny, Kaguya yelled back, stepping right up to the blonde. What did you call me? Tsunade demanded, a vein twitching in her forehead. I called you Granny. What is your hearing going in your old age? Kaguya shot back. That's it. Let's settle this outside so I can knock your teeth in, brat, Tsunade roared. Fine by me, Kaguya declared, and the two furious women stormed out. Well, didn't see that coming, Kurenai blinked. I did, Yugao smirked, accepting 500 ryo from a sulking Anko. Kurenai, Anko, Shizune, left behind by Tsunade in the rush, looked shocked to see them. Oh hey Shizune, long time no see, Anko waved with a grin. Yeah wait, I need to stop Lady Tsunade. Shizune panicked and ran out carrying her pet pig. We should follow, Yugao pointed out. We're supposed to protect Kaguya after all. Do you think she'll need help? I mean she's facing Lady Tsunade, Kurenai wondered. Are we talking about the same Kaguya we've been trailing for over a year? Anko asked skeptically. They exchanged looks. We need to stop Tsunade before she gets seriously hurt, Kurenai said, and they rushed out the door. Some distance away, at the town's edge, Tsunade and Kaguya faced off. All right brat, what's your name? Tsunade demanded. Kaguya, and I know who you are, the terrible gambler I've wasted 2 months looking for, Kaguya sneered. You were looking for me. Tsunade narrowed her eyes. Nothing that can't wait until you're healing your broken bones, Granny, Kaguya smirked. You think so, huh? Tsunade snorted. I know so. Kaguya vanished in a flash, and Tsunade barely dodged, a punch that completely shattered the wall behind her. What? Tsunade's eyes widened before she had to dodge again and again, as the strikes came in a relentless flurry. Soon the blonde Sannin stopped holding back, using her own immense strength to attack and defend. She tore huge chunks of stone and hurled them, sneaking in strikes with her chakra scalpels. Eventually, she even resorted to a poison breath attack to buy time to heal a shoulder bruise, slowing her down. Unfortunately, that backfired as the poison also clouded her vision, something the Uchiha leader exploited. Mokyutin. Jubaku Iso. Kaguya's voice rang out, final and cold, as a tree shot up around Tsunade and thick branches wrapped tightly around her, pulling her underground until only her head remained visible. How? A stunned Tsunade stammered. Kaguya didn't answer but activated her Sharingan, trapping Tsunade in a Sharingan-enhanced Nehen Shouja no Jutsu. Well, that could have gone better, Yugao sighed. I don't know, from what I remember Hebai told me, knocking her out before she causes real damage is the best outcome when she's angry, Anko mused. Is she all right? Shizune asked, rushing to her master's side. She's mostly fine. I wasn't trying to kill her, Just taking out my frustration for her throwing that idiot at me, Kaguya said, manipulating the wood to free Tsunade and push her out of the hole. Besides, I didn't spend 2 months tracking her down just to kill her. Why were you after Tsunade-sama? Shizune asked, standing protectively over the unconscious Sannin. Did the third Hokage? The old man didn't send us. I needed a medic skilled in genetics to examine me, and between her and Orochimaru, well, you get it, Kaguya shrugged. I see, not much choice then, Shizune agreed, sighing. That said, I doubt she'll be eager to help after the stunt. Oh, she won't refuse, Kaguya smirked confidently, heading into town. Even if she isn't curious about how I can use her grandfather's Kekkei Genkai, she won't pass up the chance to see her little brother and lover, even if only briefly. With that surprising statement, Kaguya left Shizune beside the sleeping Sannin and led her 3 Chunin bodyguards to a nearby hotel. Hey Kaguya-chan, Anko started. Were you serious about what you told Shizune? About letting Tsunade see her 2 lost loved ones? Kaguya asked. Yeah, I mean, bringing the dead back isn't possible, right? Anko pointed out. Not exactly. Rikudo Sennin revived the dead at the cost of his own life force. The second Hokage created Edo Tensei, which summons souls into undead bodies by sacrificing humans, Kaguya explained. Can you do either? Kurenai pressed. I don't have the Rinnegan, and even if I did, reviving a recently dead person would probably kill me in my current state. Never mind people who died decades ago, Kaguya admitted. And while I'm happy to sacrifice some lowlife, Edo Tensei only brings back puppets for the user. Using it in battle is one thing, using it for closure is disgusting. I guess you have a third option, Kurenai said, giving her a look. I do, or rather, a combination of 3 jutsu. One to create a temporary body, one to summon a soul from the afterlife, and one to bind the soul to the body, Kaguya explained. It only lasts about half a day, and I have to remain still to maintain it, but there are no lasting side effects. Interesting. Could be useful for gathering info, Yugo said. Yes, but also easy to abuse. That's why I'll be swearing Tsunade and Shizune to secrecy when I tell them, Kaguya said. So, any plans until Tsunade wakes? Anko looked around. Nope, enjoy yourselves. I'm hitting the casinos, Kaguya smirked. Later that night, while Kaguya was cleaning out the poker table, a disgruntled Tsunade arrived with Shizune trailing behind. Hey Granny, Kaguya greeted. I need to talk to you, Tsunade grunted. Sure, just let me finish this hand, Kaguya nodded. Call. Soon she was collecting her winnings and leading Tsunade to the bar where she ordered several bottles of fine sake, signaled her bodyguards to join, and set up a privacy barrier. I'll get straight to the point. A few years ago, I absorbed the chakra from a bunchin created by someone implanted with Mokutin. It combined with a bloodline protection seal Kushina Uzumaki, the former Kyubai Jinchuriki, placed on me, which also held some Kyubai chakra, causing alterations to my body, Kaguya started. At first, the only noticeable effects were my ability to use Mokutin, and an increase in chakra potency. Oh, and it rendered me sterile. I see, Tsunade frowned. Firstly, you haven't told me your identity. Secondly, do you know who conducted those Mokutin experiments? And thirdly, you told Shizune yesterday that you can revive the dead. In order, I am Kaguya Uchiha, current leader of the Uchiha clan. I don't know who carried out the experiments, but the other individual I saw that night also had Mokutin implanted and wielded the Sharingan, Kaguya paused. As for resurrection, I can only bring people back temporarily for about 12 hours. I understand. Tsunade lowered her gaze. All right, I accept, I'll examine you. I want you to agree to regular checkups, Kaguya corrected. Say every few years or whenever something significant occurs. Really, next you'll want me to take you on as my apprentice, Tsunade teased. No thanks, I'm capable on my own, Kaguya dismissed. Is that so? Tsunade frowned. You're a far better medic, but I can heal almost any wound short of fatal and handle many poisons. Right now, I need to focus on combat skills. Healing can come later if needed, Kaguya explained. I'm not sure, Tsunade tilted her head. I'll pay you 1,000,000 ryo for every checkup, Kaguya said flatly. Deal, Tsunade agreed enthusiastically, then composed herself. That is, of course, if you can actually. I'll summon Dan Kato tomorrow morning, Kaguya interrupted. After you finish diagnosing me, I'll summon Nawaki Senju as well. Does that sound acceptable? Yes, Tsunade nodded slowly. One more thing I need to clarify, Kaguya said seriously. Summoning your loved ones back will only be temporary. The souls of the dead aren't toys for us to summon whenever we want. Yes, I understand, Tsunade agreed. Well, if that's all for tonight, I want to get back to poker, Kaguya said, draining a bottle of sake. Just one thing, Shizune said hesitantly. From what I've heard, the current Uchiha leader is a 10-year-old girl. That's because I am 10. This is just a powerful henge to help me move around without people hunting for my eyes, Kaguya explained. But still, Tsunade eyed the empty sake bottles and the pile of casino chips suspiciously. Old enough to kill, old enough to drink, gamble, and fuck, Kaguya shrugged. You're not a ninja yet, Tsunade pointed out. But I've killed before, Kaguya shot back. And then some, Anko snorted quietly, though Tsunade heard it but decided it wasn't the moment to comment. With that, Kaguya returned to the poker table, while Tsunade moved to the slot machines. The next morning at dawn, the whole group assembled in the forest outside the city. All right, I'm waiting, Tsunade said impatiently. Hold on, I need to prepare, Kaguya mumbled, walking over to a tree and sitting cross-legged before it. Closing her eyes, she began drawing natural energy from the forest in the pattern Hashirama Senju used, and soon the same sage marking appeared on the young Uchiha's face. Opening her eyes, her golden irises glowed. Senjutsu, Tsunade whispered in awe, the same kind as my grandfather. Incredible. The only others I've heard can use it besides the first Hokage are the other two Sannin, Shizune whispered. Maybe, but Hebaiteam apparently can't anymore because of what he did to himself, and Jirya still partially transforms into a toad, Kaguya explained. Anyway, back up. Senpo, Mokyutin. Seishin Yoki. After a few hand signs, a humanoid-shaped tree sprouted from the ground in front of her. Senpo, Jido, Jodo Kuchios. She closed her eyes to conceal her active Rinnegan. A blue chakra speck appeared, growing into a human-sized figure, taking the form of Dan Kato. Senpo, Kaiten, Seishin Anka, Kaguya declared, cutting her hand. Blood spurted and formed three-dimensional seals around the wooden figure and the summoned soul before glowing, binding them together. The wooden look vanished, revealing a lifelike Dan Kato. Didan, Tsunade whispered. Tsunade, Shizune, he blinked, looking around. What's happening? As the emotional reunion unfolded, Kaguya sighed, closing her eyes. This is going to be a long day, she muttered. Maybe, but at least they're happy, Kurenai said, approaching with Yugo and Anko, watching the trio. I suppose, Kaguya nodded. So what now? It's a bit early for casinos, but Anko began. I have to stay here to keep the jutsu supplied with senjutsu chakra, Kaguya said flatly. You're on your own today, I'll see you tonight. She set down a large hourglass. 12 hours to go. That night, as the hourglass sand ran out, Kaguya reached for the anchored spirit, tearing it from the fake body, allowing the soul to return to the pure world while the body turned to ash scattered by the wind. Early next morning, Kaguya was led to a room Tsunade had prepared for her exam. First, thanks for yesterday, Tsunade smiled, hugging Kaguya tightly. You're welcome. No matter how much time passes, nothing fills the void they leave like proper closure, Kaguya patted her back. True, now no more sentimental moments. Let's get started. Take your real form, strip and lie on the bed, Tsunade instructed. My, aren't you bold? We've known each other only a couple days and you already want me naked in your bed. Kaguya teased, starting to remove her shirt. Well, I don't mind, but be gentle. That's not what I meant and you know it. Tsunade blushed, then continued, besides, if half of what Kurenai told me is true, gentle isn't your style. Ah, so the lightweight has spoken, Kaguya sighed. That explains her hangover this morning. Yes, she's told me a lot about your bedroom exploits, Tsunade admitted, blushing hard. You're a total pervert. I'm not a pervert, Kaguya frowned. I just enjoy the pleasures of the flesh. Unlike a certain teammate and sensei who peeks at women in the hot springs. Wait, what was that about Saru Tobai sensei? Tsunade blinked. You know that crystal ball in his office? Kaguya asked. At Tsunade's nod, she continued, what do you think he does to pass time when he takes breaks from paperwork? Tsunade's twitching eye made Kaguya smile. With a serene grin, Kaguya shed her clothes, and in a puff of smoke, reverted to her purple-eyed, now 11-year-old form. No way I'm letting anyone in my graduation class be taller than me, she thought as she headed for the bed. A few hours later, at lunch, Tsunade took a break and summarized her findings so far. Your body is evolving steadily, she began. The Uzumaki descend from the Senju. With both Senju blood and chakra, plus Kyuubi chakra, your mutation is progressing evenly. Instead of part of your body changing first, Everything is transforming simultaneously. So far, only your eyes visibly changed, but the effects are all over. Also, you seem to naturally absorb chakra from others, which likely helped you learn senjutsu faster. Any negatives? Kaguya asked, finishing her 10th bowl of ramen. Nothing significant. Your higher metabolism isn't a problem if you ignore your wallet, and your chakra control is excellent given the size of your reserves, Tsunade mused. Just a few more chakra tests this afternoon and we'll be done. That evening, Tsunade looked at Kaguya thoughtfully. Something's come up, Kaguya said. You have far more chakra than I realized, but it's locked away in several layers, Tsunade explained. Impressive her scans reached that far, Kaguya thought. Not far enough to know my true limits though. Can a human even sense that much chakra? She wondered aloud. So, is it limiting me? Cutting into my usable reserves? No, eventually you'll be able to access all of it. The only changes I expect are that, with training, you might unlock other elemental bloodlines besides Mokyutin. You already have affinity for all 5 main elements, and can mix Sutin and Daten into Mokyutin, plus strong yin and yang affinity, so it's possible, Tsunade said. Sounds promising, Kaguya nodded. Mastering all elements sounds like a worthy goal. Just don't go hunting immortality or you might end up like Orochimaru, Anko warned. A bit late for that, Kaguya snorted. But if it helps, I have no plans for human experiments or body snatching. I'm happy with my own form as it's developing. Seriously? Anko asked cautiously. What kind of immortality are you aiming for exactly? Eternal youth, Kaguya replied casually. I'm already developing a yin-yang regeneration Fuinjutsu formation to prevent me from dying mid-fight due to blood loss or other causes. You mean like my Byakugo no In? Tsunade interjected. Way beyond your yin seal, Kaguya scoffed. Honestly, I'm surprised you're still alive after using that thing so long. That seal drains your lifespan to make up for the yang chakra it lacks to balance the yin side. The only reason you're still kicking is because of your Uzumaki bloodline and its longevity. I bet if you hadn't used that seal, you'd look more like you're in your late 20s or early 30s, instead of needing a henge to hide your age. Tsunade's expression was priceless. Why do you even want immortality? Anko pressed, returning to the main topic. Well, Tsunade and Shizune have been away from Konoha since the war ended, so they might have forgotten, but the Uchiha have been developing a really arrogant attitude in recent decades. If I want future generations to be different, I'll have to stick around and ensure they turn out right. Especially since they're going to be my idiot brother's kids, Kaguya grimaced. Is he that bad? Shizune asked. He'll be a missing nin before he hits 20 if Itachi doesn't off him first, Kaguya said with certainty. You really think so? Tsunade blinked. All the signs are there, and he isn't even genin yet, Kaguya muttered as she reached for her sake bottle. Anyway, enough about my dysfunctional family. Are you sure I won't grow horns or my skin won't turn gray? Any particular reason those traits come to mind? Tsunade asked carefully. The last person with both Uchiha and Senju blood had those exact traits, Kaguya said flatly. And that was, Tsunade raised an eyebrow. The Sage of Six Paths, Kaguya answered. That rumor again, Tsunade rolled her eyes. Look, no matter what some say, just because the Rinnegan is supposed to be the ultimate Dijutsu doesn't mean all others descend from it. Oh, I know, Kaguya nodded. While the Sharingan comes from the Sage of Six Paths Rinnegan, the Byakugan is descended from his brother's Byakugan. Wait, what? Shizune blinked. Chakra first appeared in humans with Kaguya Otsutsuki, who ate the fruit from the Shinju once every 1,000 years, Kaguya explained with some irritation. She had 2 children, Hagoromo and Hamura. The Shinju got furious at having its power stolen, became the monster we call the Jubai, and started destroying the world. It devoured Kaguya, but when it targeted the other 2, Hagoromo and Hamura defeated and sealed it within Hagoromo. He then spread chakra to humanity and was called the Sage of Six Paths. Hamura had 2 children who became the ancestors of the Hyuga and Kaguya clans, while Hagoromo's 2 kids were the forebears of the Uchiha and Senju. Got it. But why are the Uchiha and Senju such bitter rivals? Shizune asked, confused. Because Hagoromo messed up when he picked his heir, Kaguya said as she took another sip of sake. The Uchiha ancestor, Indra, was the elder and inherited the sage's strong chakra, while Asura, the Senju ancestor, was younger and kind of a runt. But Asura got lucky, made some good allies, and managed to awaken the Ninshu chakra too. Inspired by this, Hagoromo named Usura his successor and tasked him with bringing peace to the world through Ninshu. Ninshu? Tsunade frowned. Not ninjutsu. Ninshu is the spiritual doctrine and peaceful predecessor of modern ninjutsu created by the Sage of Six Paths. Hagoromo's teachings in Ninshu focused on distributing chakra, meant to connect people's spiritual energies. It was supposed to let people understand one another without words and pray for each other's safety. But instead of connecting to others, people started combining their own spiritual and physical energies, needing their chakra to amplify and transform it into modern ninjutsu, Kaguya explained. Huh, who knew? Anko shrugged. Of course, it wasn't just wishful thinking but pure folly. Minds are different, that's what makes us individuals. Temporarily linking chakra is fine, but permanently doing so would just brainwash us into a hive mind, Kaguya grunted. Not exactly the peace he wanted. So you think peace is impossible? Tsunade asked. With humans as they are now, focused on themselves and short-term goals, yes, maybe in 1,000 years we'll evolve enough to pursue peace. For now, we just have to endure, Kaguya shrugged and down the rest of her sake. That's a pretty grim view of humanity, Shizune frowned. Humans slaughtered each other before chakra and have kept doing it since. The only difference is chakra gave them more ways to do it, Kaguya shrugged. On that depressing note, they headed back to the casino. The next day, Kaguya repeated the spirit summoning and binding ritual. This time Shizune stayed to chat, since she never knew Naoaki and thought Tsunade would appreciate having him all to herself for the day. Eventually, their conversation turned to medical ninjutsu, and Shizune quizzed Kaguya on her knowledge. By the time the 12 hours ended, and Naoaki's soul returned to the pure world, Shizune had tested her on the most secret and obscure medical facts she could think of, and to her shock, Kaguya answered them as easily as basic arithmetic. Shizune, there you are, Tsunade came over cheerfully then caught sight of Kaguya and pulled her into a hug. Thank you, you're welcome, Kaguya smiled. Now who's ready to get drunk? Sounds perfect, Tsunade grinned. You go ahead. I need to discuss something with Lady Tsunade, Shizune urged nervously. Sure, Kaguya nodded and headed into town. What's going on, Shizune? Tsunade asked her apprentice. Have you thought about taking another apprentice? Shizune asked directly. What, you mean Kaguya? Tsunade looked surprised. I tested her all day. I can safely say she knows more about medical ninjutsu, poisons, and anatomy than I do, Shizune explained. That's the Sharingan for you, she probably read every book she could and memorized it all. But that doesn't mean, Tsunade began. No, it's not that, she really understands everything. We even talked about applications and treatments for hypothetical patients. Her chakra control is almost perfect, and her chakra scalpel and Shozen jutsu surpass mine. She's even developed a few unique healing techniques, though she only showed me one, Shizune insisted. Oh, what's it like? Tsunade asked, intrigued. It resembles a white Shozen jutsu but much stronger. It's like she's holding her own life force in her hands, Shizune tried to describe. Almost pure yang energy if I had to guess. Well, I wouldn't mind taking another apprentice, but I doubt she'd accept, at least not now. She plans to travel another year or so, then return to Konoha to become a genin, Tsunade admitted. I guess she could convince Sensei to let her leave again after becoming chunin if she studies under me. I doubt he'd object. Or we could return to Konoha and train her there, Shizune added quietly. Not yet. I'm not ready to go back. Maybe in a few years, but for now, Tsunade sighed. I understand, Shizune nodded. To everyone's surprise, Kaguya announced early the next morning that they were leaving. So soon? Tsunade asked, disappointed. Finding you took longer than expected, Kaguya admitted, so I'm a bit behind schedule. I see. Well, I guess I'll see you next time you need a checkup, Tsunade said. I plan to have one before I return to Konoha, Kaguya assured her. All right, safe travels, and keep those three out of trouble, Tsunade teased, glancing at the 3 chunin kunoichi. I will, Kaguya smirked, enjoying their embarrassed expressions. Where to now? Shizune asked. The land of sky, then the land of demons, followed by the land of iron, Kaguya answered honestly. Oh, and the land of wind as well. Be careful in the land of sky. They don't get along with Konoha or the land of fire, Tsunade warned. And don't upset the samurai in the land of iron. We're not there to cause trouble. My interest there is mostly archaeological, Kaguya smirked. Oh, digging up another 12,000-year-old demon girl for a cursed sword, Anko deadpanned. What? Tsunade blinked. Ignore her. She says weird stuff. Kaguya covered Anko's mouth, but the damage was done. Tsunade looked at the four travelers and felt a headache coming on. Just, don't trigger the end of the world, okay? The blonde Sanin rubbed her forehead. I'll try, Kaguya chuckled nervously. Oh boy.